a pretty good amount.
What does the government do particularly well? Not much. The government has become just an insane... What does the government do particularly well? Not much. The government has become just an insane monster. It's just an ever-growing monster that just keeps eating more money, eating more resources. None of these agencies are doing what they set out to do.
What do you think the role of the government should be?
Not much. I would say the founders basically got it completely right, that everything should be dealt with at the state and local level, and then the federal government should have a couple things that they're supposed to do.
What are your predictions for the finances of the average American?
I'm extremely bullish on the American economy right now, across the board. I think the world is changing in massive ways. We're in such an absolute massive technological shift right now.
Is that what the founders said? I mean, I would say I don't have the historical background to say because I'm not super well read into it, but I know I'm more read into it than Dave Dipshit is. Having the federal government do the fewest things possible and leaving everything up to the states, I mean, arguably was the Articles of Confederation, which was a massive fucking failure. So I feel like the whole point of the federal government, the Constitution was to create a stronger federal government, but hey, what do I know?
Right now, I think we're in for an incredible time in America. Doesn't matter how much money you have. But as a general rule, I would tell anybody,
Dave Rubin, thank you so much for coming on the Iced Coffee Hour. We really appreciate it.
good to be with you guys. We are drinking our psychotropic drink, and we'll see what happens in about a half hour from now.
Shout out Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
Just
Very
wait
kind
for
of
it to
you.
kick in.
I walked in, I said,
gotta
what do you
kick.
got with caffeine? Thinking there might be some iced coffee involved, and now we got mushrooms and God knows what, so we'll see what happens.
So we first wanted to discuss the cultural conservative shift that I feel like has really been hitting hard the past probably.
What do you think the role of federal government should be? I mean, you have a government that secures your freedoms, right? So you want to ensure some level of fluidity. For instance, having courts is good, so you have ways to enforce contracts without having to kill people. Having a criminal system is good, so that people aren't committing crimes against each other, which would lead obviously to the destruction of society. And then from an economic perspective, I think having a government provide some level of support for activities that the market wouldn't solve for naturally is probably good. And then there's like the fundamental functions of a state, being able to do treaties with other countries, engage in trade with other countries, have a military, stuff like that.
I mean, started maybe even like 7 or 8 years ago, and then slowly it's been ramping up, and then recently it's just exploded. I mean, you have Joe Rogan, who's just a lifelong liberal going to the right. You have Elon, Mark Zuckerberg, even lending credence to Donald Trump after the attempt. And you actually started as a liberal commentating for the Young Turks, and then you started to see things a little bit differently and started going to the right. Where do you think that all started from?
So I started with the Young Turks in about 2014, and although I don't have a lot of great things to say about Cenk from the Young Turks, I do always give the guy credit for he was early in on digital media, which now has completely dwarfed mainstream media. And even just this morning when I was on the plane, I was flipping through Twitter, and it's like MSNBC's being sold off and CNN's about to fire half their people, and there's just complete upheaval now. So I do give credit to the guy for kind of getting in early on that. I was always kind of a liberal growing up. I'm from New York. I was just sort of like a New York old school liberal, which is very, very different, as I'm sure you guys know, from what the modern sort of framing of what a liberal is.
Does liberal just mean supported gay marriage in 2007? Yeah, for a lot of these guys, basically, yeah.
I was liberal in that, like, I didn't really care who you married. I didn't care what you smoked. In some sense, I'm still, at least I consider myself begrudgingly pro-choice. But that was sort of when things work, you can kind of be liberal. And that was what most people were in America at the time. I'm a child of the 80s. I'm 48. Like, that was really how things were. And then conservatives were thought of as a little more conservatives, kind of, were more about business and war or something like that. They were meaner, or, you picture like The Simpsons, all the rich guys in the room with Mr. Burns and the lightning in the background, and Dracula's there and everybody else. And I started at the Young Turks, and they were kind of, to me, they were like liberals, but they were hopped up on caffeine. They were just screaming all the time. Everybody was a racist and a bigot and a buffoon that they were fighting. And I kind of liked it. And I think that that's actually what caught on culturally for the progressives is that they were just like juiced up about everything all the time, and they were just so right and everybody else was so wrong. And then after about a year there, I started thinking something is not right here. Like there, sometimes when you just feel something for a while and then you don't have like the exact touch point yet, but I was just kind of feeling like this can't make sense. Like, how are we so right about everything? And it's all so obvious, and all of these people are just evil and bigots and racist. Like, it can't be. And then there were a couple moments along the way that kind of broke me. The most famous one that I think became way bigger than me was when Sam Harris was on Real Time with Bill Maher with Ben Affleck, and Affleck was on, and people think he maybe was getting a little juiced up for Batman at the time. And they started discussing radical Islam, and Sam was trying to explain that you have to be able to criticize ideas without being bigoted towards people. And Affleck just jumped all over Sam Harris, who's a very soft-spoken atheist. He was on the show to talk about mindful meditation, basically, a new book he had about that. And Bill Maher, who was a lifelong liberal, live and let live kind of thing. And basically he called them gross and racist. That was the line. And I was watching it. I remember watching it live that night. And I was watching it and I thought, holy shit, this right now, what was happening right in front of me, this is what I've been trying to formulate in my head that I knew was wrong. That the liberals, the progressives, somehow were completely unable to separate how you should be able to talk about ideas, criticize ideas, without being bigoted towards people. And once I saw it like so perfectly, and maybe it had something to do with Affleck being kind of like an A-list star and kind of over the top, so it was so emotive, I just started talking about that on my show. And suddenly, all these people started coming to me like, Dave, I'm seeing something wrong here too. And then really what happened was I started talking to some conservatives. I started talking to Larry Elder. There was a very famous moment we had. I started talking to Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, all of these guys. And what I found was, even though I disagreed with them about some stuff, there was an awful lot of just, live and let live. America's kind of good. Like, let's see if we can talk this stuff out. And really all I was getting on the other side was scorched earth. So anyway, to kind of get that to exactly where your question is, this new thing that's happening right now, I don't really describe it as conservative as much as it's just pro-America, right? Because Tulsi is definitely not a conservative. Tulsi is definitely pro-choice. And, the war thing has now flipped because the Democrats have become the party of war. But RFK is definitely not a traditional conservative. But what's bringing all these guys together, it's basically a love for America, and it's a love for free speech, and hopefully a restoration of those things. So I would say
I don't like how the MAGA tendrils have like expanded out to infect every corner of the cultural zeitgeist. I don't even know what you would say, that's like infected the tech bros, and it's infected the finance bros, and it's like infected like everything it touches. So it's so funny that I've kind of made this complaint in the past. It's crystallized more in my head. It's funny that the accusation was always that like liberals controlled the culture, and there's a degree of truth to that, but the cultural controllers don't actually talk about politics, right? That like, if you think of like, well, think about all like the Hollywood stars, and think about like the singer, like Taylor Swift is a great example. The Taylor Swift endorsement, right? Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. People are like, oh, this is a huge deal. It's really good. But Taylor Swift doesn't do politics. She doesn't talk about politics. None of these people, like Hollywood actors or people none of these people really talk about politics. Maybe now and then they'll drop a tweet, or they'll give like an interview and they'll be like woke or whatever, but they don't like really talk politics. Meanwhile, conservatives everywhere are on overdrive mode, talking about politics full time, constantly, everywhere, in every arena, and it infects and it bleeds through every single part of every single thing they do, right? Should I open a savings account? You want to open a savings account? Let me tell you about the Federal Reserve and the evil of fractional reserve banking and why we should be back on the gold standard. It's like, okay, Jesus. Should I buy a house? Do you want to be in the renter economy forever? Do you want to have a family? Aren't you white? Aren't you worried about being outbred by, like, can I go to college? Depends. Are you going to go for a wokey STEM degree? Or not a STEM degree, I'm sorry. You're going to go for a wokey liberal arts degree? Or you're going to get a manly, a real STEM degree? Okay, Jesus. Like, infects, like, everything.
A wide tent, new conservative movement, if you want to use the conservative word. I mean, I'm married to a guy. Like, that's not the most conservative thing out there. So, like, there's something really interesting brewing, and I'm very... I've been getting a lot of credit for the last couple of weeks because it's so connected to my journey, but I'm very proud that I had really interesting brewing, and I'm very, I've been getting a lot of credit for the last couple of weeks.
But credit from who?
Because it's so connected to my journey, but I'm very proud that I had anything, to whatever extent I had anything to do with it.
I can think of a person as famous as Taylor Swift who is very actively Republican, except for maybe Elon Musk. I would say easily Joe Rogan, but there's I'm trying to think. You have a thing where you have like audience number, and then you have audience, I guess you can call it like conversion, basically, for how well can I convert an audience member into a sale, right? So if you go way over here, right? Let's think about radio, okay? For radio, I have a huge audience reach, okay? I might broadcast in a place like Chicago, and I might have 100,000 listeners or more, right? I have a huge reach. How many people in Chicago listen AM radio? How many radio listeners in Chicago? I'm sure these numbers are down a lot from what they used to be, but can I find other numbers on this anywhere? Cumulative listeners, maybe? A million, whatever. But whatever. So like I might have a huge reach on radio, okay? And then I might go over into TV, and I also have like a pretty huge reach, okay? And then from there, maybe we'll hop online, and I might have things like TikTok or Instagram, right? Where I still have like a really huge reach. And then we might get into things like YouTube, where I've got like a pretty huge reach, or not a huge reach. And then maybe we'll say like YouTube videos. And then we'll say we've got things like streaming, okay? Where the reach becomes much smaller. So when you look at things like this, you're trying to imagine like, okay, well, who gets paid the most money between all of these things? And the overall viewers don't matter anywhere near as much as the actual engagement. Like how likely are you to convert a listener into a sale? You have your sales funnel where you're trying to get people to go buy shit, or to some other type of engagement where you can monetize them, right? For radio, this number is like, it's like here. I think for TV, it might be a bit higher, maybe like here. For like TikTok and Instagram, maybe you'll do like a little bit better. YouTube videos are a bit better. And then like for streaming, it's like the best. Okay, I should draw this a bit more. Because the engagement per viewer is so much higher than it is for any of these other platforms, right? If you imagine a radio host that broadcasts to 100,000 or 500,000 people, right? That radio host might make 100,000 a year or something. I don't know. Somebody Google what's the median salary for like a radio host. Maybe less than that. I guess it depends on like how small you're going, right? For people working TV, they're going to be reaching millions of people, but their salaries aren't like millions of dollars unless you're like a primetime fucking host, right? But when you come all the way down here to the streamer side, right? So like right now I've got 5,500 viewers. For 5,000 viewers, if you were a radio host, you would be a failure. 5,000 viewers, what are you, a college town radio host? For TV, you're getting kicked off of anything. TikTok and Instagram, 5,000 views on a video is nothing. Even for YouTube videos, getting 5,000 views a video is just not much. But for streaming, 5,000 viewers is easily enough to hit you like mid six-figure income, if not more, depending on how you monetize, right? Because the engagement is so much higher. All of this to say that when somebody says, is there somebody as big as Taylor Swift on the right? And then my response would be something like Joe Rogan. I think that Taylor Swift is like this. She's got a much larger reach. But when she talks about politics, it doesn't really mean much because her audience is not very political. They might be kind of be like young and wokey, but they're not really like politically activated. They don't like, oh, Taylor Swift said this thing. Okay, cool. And then like, okay, well, what happened next week with Justin Bieber? Or I don't know who you talk about these days, right? But on the Joe Rogan side of things, if Joe Rogan wants to talk about how dinosaurs are fake or whatever, we're going to do a 3-hour show on that, and it's going to become part of like the community identity to believe these things, and it's going to be referenced on future shows, and there might be future guests that talk about it, and there might be like little memes that develop about it. Like the engagement is so much higher. So even though Taylor Swift might have a bigger reach in terms of number of ears hit, like eyes on content, Joe Rogan has a much deeper reach into the mind because people are engaging with that content for that content a much more deeply, I guess. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I'm very proud because I think America's back, and we had a little something to do with it.
I genuinely
Intuitively, I see what you're saying, but didn't Devin Nash talk a lot about how Twitch underperforms in the lens of advertisers, as that intuition didn't actually translate into conversion? I don't know what he talked about in specifically. It might be that they overcharge a little bit, but what I'm saying is undeniably true. And you can go and ask literally anybody. Would you rather have 100,000 listeners on radio, 50,000 listeners on TV, 20,000 views per video on YouTube, or 10,000 live stream viewers? You don't even have to think 10,000 live stream viewers easily. That outranks maybe all those other things combined. That's the easiest thing in the world, right?
Whatever extent I had anything to do with it, I'm very proud because I think America's back, and we had a little something to do with it.
I genuinely think one of the biggest catalysts to Trump winning this election was Elon buying Twitter, now X. And now he's wanting to run the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
That's a thing to skip over, but okay.
With Vivek Ramaswamy, which I personally am absolutely thrilled about.
Oh my gosh, me too. No, it could not be better. It literally could not be better.
And you speak with Elon, or you have quite a bit actually. Do you think that this is something that's actually going to come to fruition?
Oh, yes.
Actually going to make a difference?
Yes.
How do they have any authority? Because my understanding is that they can make recommendations, but they can't implement anything themselves.
Well, we don't know exactly yet because it's a new department. So there's a certain irony here, right? Their whole goal is to eliminate departments, right? We have something like 479 departments. It's more than 2 a year, basically, in the history of the United States.
This is also just a thing. It's a thing just to keep track. Heuristics for if people are full of shit. Anytime people are just throwing numbers out with no context, it doesn't mean anything. And you should always push back on people that throw out a number with no context. Oh, we have 420 whatever departments. How many departments should we have? Which ones do you want to get rid of? Because without that information, that's just an empty, hollow, meaningless salesman statement. What is that? What's the appropriate number?
My understanding is that they can make recommendations, but they can't implement anything themselves.
Well, we don't know exactly yet because it's a new department. So there's a certain irony here, right? Their whole goal is to eliminate departments, right? We have something like 479 departments. It's more than 2 a year, basically, in the history of the United States. And they're adding a department to get rid of departments. So we don't know.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Positivity. Okay. Sorry. Positivity. Okay. Wait, why is this not working? Wait, hold on. Ooh. I'm just writing shit down. Departments that are created in the office of the federal government, in the executive department, and the executive branch of government. Okay, offices. And so departments and stuff like that can only be authorized or created by the Congress, okay? I should start remembering which article, because it sounds nice to be like, Article 2, Article 3, Article. Which article deals with Congress? Is it 2? Article, Constitution, Congress, which one? Article 1 is the Congress, okay. Offices can only be created by the Congress. Which one? Can we remember? I should start looking at this every single time we mention something so I can say in the Constitution. Nixon made the EPA destiny. Nice bait, Pisco. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution, the government of the United States, or in any department or officer thereof. Is it this? Would it be this clause here in Section 8? Wait. Oh, no. Hold on. I think it is Article 2. Under the executive. Okay. Sorry, hold on real quick. Pisco said that Nixon created the EPA. I'm not sure if Pisco is half trolling or not. So Nixon Nixon suggested, because the only thing the president can do is suggest things, kind of like when you say Biden passed legislation. No, Biden can't really pass legislation. He can only, pen it, sign it after it's been passed by the Congress. I think Nixon's administration created the framework for the EPA, but then they have to give that to Congress for Congress to pass. The president cannot create offices. The president doesn't have the power to do so. Okay, it's Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, I think. Okay. He shall have power, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States. So I believe an officer is the head of an executive department, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. Law always refers to things made by Congress, right? Rules can come from the federal government. Rules can come from the executive branch. Rules are just made to enforce laws, which come from the Congress, right? But the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. So these departments have to be authorized and created by the Congress. I'm sorry, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because this is basically like structure of government for the United States, but...
Yes.
How do they have any authority? Because my understanding is that they can make recommendations, but they can't implement anything themselves.
Well, we don't know exactly yet because it's a new department. So there's a certain irony here, right? Their whole goal is to eliminate departments, right? We have something like 479 departments. It's more than 2 a year, basically, in the history of the United States. And they're adding a department to get rid of departments. So
we're not adding a department to that list of 479 departments or whatever, because the executive branch, the president, cannot create a department. So the Doge thing is not an actual new department that's part of the executive branch. It's probably just going to be like the president might be allowed to create inferior officers or inside like the Department of the White House. Like he can have like an advisor basically, but Doge is not going to be like a full on like the Department of Education or the Environmental Protection Agency or the Health and Human Services Department or the Department of State. It's not going to be a real department like that. That's not how that works. The president doesn't have the authority to do that unless he gives it to Congress and Congress passes it and then authorizes it and then creates that new department that way. Okay, sorry. That's all that to say that, right?
Departments, it's more than 2 a year, basically, in the history of the United States. And they're adding a department to get rid of departments. So we don't know like the technical mechanism yet. I saw all these people like Elizabeth Warren is like, oh, how are they going to be so efficient? They need 2 people to do the job, implying it should be a 1-person job. But it's like, first off, Elon has 20 other jobs at least. The guy is literally sending us to Mars. He's building tunnels under LA.
He's the top player of Diablo too.
Yeah, he's president
the
of
best player in the world.
Is he literally the top player?
He's not the top player. He did actually recently speedrun something and set the world record in Diablo, but I think that he's officially top 20 leaderboard in the world, which is insanely competitive. Well, because you have people that dedicate their life. He's officially top 20. He's not the top player. He did actually.
You remember when I said I got really irritated that people are like, oh, when Trump got shot, he stood up immediately. No, he didn't. And no, there was even that video that one guy got mad and he tweeted at me and he posted the video of Trump standing up right after. And it was an edited video. It's because these are the little lies that add up to create these legends. Okay. This is also why I don't know if I start to wonder about like any history, like any historical stories about like brave leaders or like things on the battlefield. Like if people are willing to lie this much, like about shit that's on video that we know to be true, then what the fuck else do people lie about historically, But Elon Musk is not a top anything player in any video game ever. That's just not true. He doesn't have the time for it. It's like, that's obvious. If you spend any amount of time doing any competitive gaming, it's obvious that that's not true. Like he wouldn't have the time to do it. There are other people that know life the fuck out of all of this shit. Like this is just obviously not true. It's just like saying like, it was so crazy that Elon Musk actually has like a 16-inch dick. Elon Musk has like an 18-inch cock. Like it's crazy. It's like, bro, the longest dick in the world? Really? Seriously?
Player in the world.
Is he? Wait.
Destiny, do you know the heads of the departments? I only have heard of 4 of these people. I don't offhand know. I mean, your big departments, all of these guys, like we've heard of like Anthony Blinken or Janet Yellen. Most of these, I'm not gonna be able to say off the top of my head though. The heads of your departments, these guys here for your big departments, the people here that are the heads of these departments, these are nominated by the president and then confirmed by the Senate. And these big guys are part of your cabinet. This is the cabinet that people refer to. It's when the president comes into office and he brings with him, these are all of the new department heads that I'd like to nominate. They're part of my cabinet, and they all fit in the cabinet. Like a Horcrux.
Is he literally the top
So
player?
he's
For
not
whatever
the
that
top
means?
player.
Yeah.
He did actually recently speedrun something and set the world record in Diablo, but I think that he's officially top 20 leaderboard in the
Like, how could you even think that? You just have to know nothing. You must have some humility when stepping outside of your area of expertise, no? Like, imagine I was like, Biden might not be the quickest mentally, but you do know that he is like the record for bench press. Like the last time he competed when he was like 81 years old. Like, he literally is the strongest bench presser in the world. Or maybe he got like third or fourth in like the Mount Olympia. I think that's bodybuilding. I don't think that's powerlifting. But like it's just such an honest, but because I guess it's gaming and they don't know anything about video games, they just make the most absurd statements in the world. Like, come on.
Yeah.
He did actually recently speedrun something and set the world record in Diablo, but I think that he's officially top 20 leaderboard in the world, which is insanely competitive.
Well,
because you have people that dedicate their lives to Diablo,
Right.
Probably thousands, tens of thousands of people, and he has all these lives and jobs, and still he's top 20.
Well, I can tell you a
I can
story,
hurt that.
not about Diablo specifically, but maybe a little bit about his psyche that might explain that. Because the first time that I met him was right after he bought Twitter. So it was about 2 weeks after he bought Twitter, and I got a message from somebody saying Elon wants to meet you. Can you come? And I was in Florida, where I'm in Miami, and obviously they're in San Francisco. I called every friend I know with a plane, and I was like, somebody, you got to get me there immediately. Like, he wants to meet me tonight, and nobody would get me on a plane. Finally, there was one flight that I could get on. It was literally the last seat, 37B right in the middle to go meet Elon. I show up at Twitter at about midnight. And there's, I don't know, like 50 or 75 people up there. And he immediately walks out. He says hi. He's like, and his eyes were kind of bloodshot. It was a long day. He's just dressed in like a ratty t-shirt, and he's got sneakers on and kind of, just average jeans. Like, could not, if you had just seen him down the street, you'd just be like, that's any guy. Like, and he's like, Dave, they told me there's some weird stuff going on with your Twitter account. He's like, I'm really tired.
Yeah, by the way, welcome to all of the tech world for the last like 20 years. Yes, that is the meme. They don't wear suits. They wear, where's the... what's the fucking meme? Like, you go to work and you work in fucking San Francisco, and it's like, oh, this guy, this guy must be a junior developer. This guy probably got hired like 2 weeks ago, and he's in here to do his hard work for the day. And then you see like this guy, and you're like, oh shit, oh fuck, this is probably the guy that like maintains like half our fucking infrastructure. It's this dude. Holy shit, watch out. The guy who comes into the office without any fucking shoes on. I'm only saying this now because I feel like it's going to be... I feel like at some point it's like, yeah, Elon Musk was the guy that made it okay to wear ordinary clothes to work. And it's like, oh, God.
But if you want me to look at this now, we can spend a couple hours. Otherwise, if you could just come back in the morning. And I was like, just that right there tells you everything you need to know about the guy. Like, I am one of a zillion people. Just come back. There's some weird stuff going on with your Twitter account. He's like, I'm really tired, but if you want me to look at this now, we can spend a couple hours. Otherwise, if you could just come back in the morning. And I was like, just that right there tells you everything you need to know about the guy. Like, I am one of a zillion people. Like, that you're going to now at 12:30 a.m. we're going to sit down and go under the hood and look in my Twitter and see what happens. So I was like, it's okay. We could do this in the morning. I did spend a couple hours that night with the programmers going through the stuff. But then the next day I met with him, and I've subsequently met with him a couple other times. And
a couple hours with the programmers going through problems with your Twitter account? What is even happening? This is not a real story. This is a fake story. This is not a real story, just to be clear.
the guy's just doing a million things. Like, if you're supposed to be on a journey in life, if you're supposed to find something that you want to do and do it, I don't know that anyone's doing a better example of that. So to answer the question, I think they absolutely are going to go in, and as Vivek said,
Destiny, I'm not American, but these departmental budgets seem wild. $300 billion on veterans, $79 billion on education, $16 billion on commerce. We spend a lot of money on shit. The U.S. government spends a lot of money on a lot of shit.
that they are going to delete departments. I think almost nothing is off the table. They are going to, the government has become just an insane, I would say, monster. It's just an ever-growing monster that just keeps eating more money, eating more resources. This is the deep state that, Trump's been talking about for years. And they're going to go in and they're going to do it quick, sort of like what's...
And what do we have to show for it? Like in what part? Like, have some pride in your fucking country, right? We still have the strongest military in the world. We're still considered leaders. Our economy is still the largest. I've been hearing since I'm 18 years old that China is on the verge of overcoming the US economy, right? We bounced back from COVID quicker than any other motherfucking country. All the people that you worship came to the USA to build. Elon Musk didn't say, well, I would like to do Tesla and electric cars, but you know, there are so many departments in the U.S. federal government that I don't know if I can do it, right? Like,
what's happening in Argentina right now. And then suddenly people are going to be like, holy, they did save $2 trillion in the budget, and people are going to get some of their tax money back, and we're not going to have all these wasteful departments, and things are...
You know why they don't say wasteful departments, $2 trillion back in the budget? Like, these numbers don't even mean anything to you. You know why they don't name departments? This is why they don't speak in specifics anymore.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
EPA?
EPA, there you go. No, okay.
Let's talk deposition.
Seriously? Is EPA the one you were talking about? Or
No, sir.
You can't name the third one?
The third agency of government,
Yeah.
I would do away with the education, the...
Look at the difference in... Can you imagine in today's political environment if that guy would have said, seriously? Do you know how much people would be on Twitter like, why is the media so biased? Why'd you jump down his throat? So biased. I can't believe you fucking screamed at him on stage like that.
Is EPA the one you were talking about? Or
No, sir.
You can't name the third one?
The third agency of government,
Yeah.
I would do away with the education, the commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
Wait, I thought he said, wait, where was the debate where he says,
Sean Spicer criticized Democrats for not being cooperative and moving along a sufficient number of nominees to cabinet posts, and I expect that that is going to be a drumbeat we continue to hear as more and more of these cabinet nominees in their confirmation hearings find themselves subject to criticism from Democrats, not so much from Republicans, but in some cases they will, and that is going to create some static and make it difficult to fill out this government as quickly as Donald Trump would like. We expect that people like Jim Mattis, the nominee to be Defense Secretary, Mike Pompeo, the CIA director choice, are going to be confirmed rapidly, probably tomorrow, as President-elect Trump becomes President Trump. But Steve Mnuchin is going to face some tough questions at his confirmation hearing today about foreclosures, about ties to Wall Street.
where's the video? I thought one of the, I know that he was in a debate or in an interview, and he said that he wanted to eliminate the Department of Energy, which is the department in the United States that that oversees our like nuclear reactors and nuclear weapons. Okay, he wanted to get rid of the Department of Energy. By the way, Trump made this guy the head of the Department of Energy too, which is fucking hilarious. Where did he say this in a debate? Hold on. Regrets calling for dissolution. When did he say it? That was the one he couldn't think of? Oh, did he just have that on a website? Maybe he just listed it somewhere or whatever. Or no, he didn't tweet it out. Did we have Twitter back then? How long ago was this? Oh, this was for 2016. Right?
Sean Spicer.
Wait, fuck. Hold on, my brain is...
ties to of the
The first bit. I don't remember when he said he wanted to eliminate the Department of Energy. I don't remember that. Rick Perry wasn't in the 2016 primaries, was he? No, he was. He was in the 2016 primaries. Okay. 2016 is when there were like 12 Republicans, right? Was Herman Cain? 999. Was he in the 2016 primaries or was that earlier? Oh, God. For Herman Cain, was that the one where people were, was that 2012? Oh, maybe it was 2012. Herman Cain, was that the one where people were tweeting from his account after he died? They were still using it? Hold on. I'm so sorry. Fuck. Random thoughts. Okay, it was 2012. You guys don't remember 999? We're bouncing around a lot here. Sorry, hold on.
This. This economy is on life support. We took 5 revenue sources that are currently being collected through taxes that cost us $430 billion a year collectively for filing and compliance. So we looked at corporate income taxes, personal income taxes, capital gains tax.
Oh my God. Even listening to these guys speak, this guy was the retard of the retard. Even these guys all sound, he's talking about, he's giving numbers. He's talking about specific taxes that he would, even these guys sound infinitely smarter than where the Republican Party is today. What the fuck? Sorry, okay. But anyway.
This economy is on life support. We took 5 revenue sources that are currently being collected through taxes that cost us $430 billion a year collectively for filing and compliance. So we looked at corporate income taxes, personal income taxes, capital gains taxes, payroll taxes, and the death tax. Then we said we want a structure where we can expand the base. But the only way to expand the base was to bring in retail sales. And what is the lowest rate that would be simple, fair, efficient, transparent, and revenue neutral?
And look at this. When this guy is talking, just to be clear, this guy's a fucking retard, or this is his reputation as being a retard. People made fun of him for the 999 thing. They made fun of him for other shit. But this guy's speaking like he actually understands like tax policy, right? Well, what are you going to do? You either have to increase taxes on some people, or you have to expand the tax base, right? Yeah, that's true. Or you can expand the size of the economy, so the absolute value of taxes you collect increases as well. But yeah, this is true. This is right.
This is how we came up with the 9% rate on corporate tax, a flat rate, personal income tax, a flat rate, and a 9% retail sales tax. So we derived this by using existing revenue numbers. So it is not a gimmick, and we've also had it scored, and it will boost this economy and create 6 million new jobs.
And I know you're going to be coming out with that scoring report soon, right? Can you tell us when?
Yes. We've already had the scoring done. We're just trying to clean it up such that when we present it to the public, it won't raise a lot of questions. So we'll have that done within the next week, and we'll make it available.
All right. So let me ask you this, because we just talked about the poll that came out this afternoon, where you're leading in Florida with a significant margin over Governor Romney, and by just a point, so within the margin of error, but still in an early voting state, South Carolina. So I just took a few of the early states, New Hampshire, Iowa, South Carolina, Florida. If you look at the current sales tax in those states, New Hampshire's at 0, the others primarily at 6%. So voters in those states watching tonight see that, and let's look at New Hampshire. They go, I'm paying 0 now. Even though Mr. Kane gives me a cut of my payroll tax, I'm getting a 9% sales tax, and I'm getting a 9% income tax rate.
Herman Cain was asked, do you know where Uzbekistan is? And his answer was no. How is that going to create more jobs? I mean, true.
Even though Mr. Kane gives me a cut of my payroll tax, I'm getting a 9% sales tax, and I'm getting a 9% income tax rate. A lot of people say that will result in an increase in people at the bottom of the income level in this country.
Here's how I respond. This is something new to the public to say that you're going to pay a sales tax on retail sales of 9%. But at least you know what it is. The problem with our current system is that there are embedded taxes and sneak taxes in the current tax code.
All right, so the fundamental question of regressivity, that a sales tax that applies to clothes and to food is...
Do you know where Uzbekistan is? Do I know where Uzbekistan is? Is it right below Tajikistan? Uzbekistan. I think it is. It's like northeast of Afghanistan, right? Next to Georgia? Oh, never mind then. Nope. I mix up Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan is more to the east, and then Kazakhstan is the huge one. Is Uzbekistan next to Georgia and Armenia? Is that true? I don't remember. Wait, it's not next to... Oh, that is a troll. Oh, fuck you. Hold on. Yeah, I thought Uzbekistan was... Yeah, up here. Fuck you. It is over here. Fuck you. Well, north of Afghanistan, I think I should say. Okay. These are like mystery countries. I don't know anything about these countries. I've never heard them referenced before in the news. I don't know any history about them. I don't know if there used to be like the massive country of like Stanistan, and then they all broke off into the respective stands. And like brother Uz went this way, brother Turk, brother Tajiki, and brother Kyrgyz and brother Kazakh, they went their separate ways and became their own stan provinces. Or I have literally, I have no fucking idea. I have no clue. I think you could like delete one of these from a world map. And I think that, I don't know, maybe in Europe, maybe you guys learned about it. Like most people just wouldn't even know. Stan means land of. So Afghanistan is the land of the Afghanis. Gotcha.
I believe yours would, hits the people who spend the majority of their income on food and clothes, that being the poorest people in America.
It's not regressive. take an actual example. The reason some people say it's regressive is because that's the way they think relative to the current paradigm and the current tax code. If I can very quickly, let's take a median income family of $50,000 a year. If you want to use $25,000 a year, just cut these numbers in half. A family making $50,000 a year, which is around median income, under the current system, they're going to pay $10,200 in taxes. Under the 999 plan, they're going to pay $4,500 for that middle nine, and that leaves them $5,200, $5,700.
This guy is like a fucking genius compared to current discourse. And remember, this guy was a retard back in the day. People consider this like a joke, the 999 plan. Was he the CEO of Pizza Hut? Like everybody made fun of this guy. I think that there's that Herman Cain Award for because he was also, I think, an anti-vaxxer too, and then he died of COVID. Oh, CEO of Godfathers. My bad. He was chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Omaha branch. What does that even mean? Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Omaha branch. Why would the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City have a branch in Omaha? He was the chairman of, okay. Oh, this guy was a big econ brain memer. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is actually so depressing. Why I'm listening to all these people that used to be considered retards, but they're actually like this. So the charge that your plan is regressive because the sales tax is regressive is technically true, right? Sales taxes are regressive because poor people spend a greater proportion of their money on buying things, so therefore they would pay a greater percentage of their money on taxes. And then his counter, because I think for 999, I don't remember what all nines were. It was like 9% sales tax, 9% income tax, 9% property tax. I don't know what the other 9 was. But he can counter that with exact figures and say, sure, they might pay a greater percentage of their income in sales tax, but on the other 2 9s, what do you say, the middle? Oh, corporate tax. I don't know if the math works out to support him, but it's a substantive response to the actual issue at hand.
Use $25,000 a year, just cut these numbers in half. A family making $50,000 a year, which is around median income, under the current system, they're going to pay $10,200 in taxes. Under the 999 plan, they're going to pay $4,500 for that middle nine, and that leaves them $5,200, $5,700 to apply to sales taxes that they would pay on that third nine on food and shelter. And then if they buy goods, no taxes on used goods. So the actual purchase behavior, we can't predict, but it is not regressive. In fact, it empowers those that make the least amount of money because you don't pay the sales tax on used goods.
Interesting. Okay, sorry. Is he just lying by ignoring all the transfers? Like if you're making $25K back then, you probably get a ton of tax rebates? Maybe. There is something to be said, though. I agree. I believe there's something to be said for a relatively simple tax code. There's something to be said for being able to see a tax or to see a cost or to see a thing and know immediately how much it costs, as opposed to there's a lot of obfuscation today. Like people don't know how much it costs for a college degree. That's an argument we get into a lot. Or how much it costs for healthcare, or how much it costs for like how much you pay in taxes. Like nobody really knows the answer because there's effective rates. Like people don't even know how marginal tax brackets work, right? They think that if you're in the 25% tax bracket, it means you're paying 25% on all of your income, not just the income in that bracket. So all of our systems are incredibly complicated. Oh, fuck, that clip cut off, but this is what we were looking for. Then Rick Perry stumbled. He couldn't recall the third. When coaxed by other candidates and the moderator, did he mean the Environmental Protection Agency maybe? He drew a blank. Sorry, he said as he grinned sheepishly at the camera. Oops. A few minutes later, Perry remembered. It was the Department of Energy he wanted to get rid of. That was it. And then Trump made this guy the head of the Department of Energy. Based. Okay. Back to this. Sorry. Wait, quick pit stop. Which one of these is closer to being correct? Women get more comfortable around you when they know you're not trying to pursue them. Now that OP has a GF, his coworker feels comfortable being friendly. The fact that so many of you interpret this as jealous flirting is the reason why women feel like they can't be friends with men. They got filtered. The first girl saw a single guy, unknown quality. When they show up as taken, they've been vetted by another woman, whom she also has the luxury of seeing and can judge their taste in other things. So now they're considered to have positive value. I mean, both of these can be true, but I mean, it would depend on the behavior. Okay.
Still going to work. And that's what I think the left is now worried about more than anything else. It's not that he's Hitler. Nobody thinks Donald Trump is Hitler, honestly. Maybe there's some people that are very, very confused because they watch too much MSNBC. But what they're really afraid of is this guy's going to get in, and now he has the right people around him. He didn't have the right people around him last time. But now between RFK and Tulsi and Elon and Vivek, and the list goes on and on. I think Rubio's going to do a great job. Secretary of State. It's like they can really do things right now. And I think we're in for an incredible time in America.
Why
the next
did
decade.
nobody think to do this sooner?
This is referring to the phenomenon of men getting more traction from women after getting into a relationship. Oh, thanks. I didn't realize that. That is a real thing, and it is a very true thing, for sure. But it's also very real and true that when women feel like you're less threatening, they'll be friendly with you more because they don't think you're always trying to fuck them. That's also true. Both of those things are very true. Okay, sorry.
Between RFK and Tulsi and Elon and Vivek, and the list goes on and on. I think Rubio's going to do a great job. Secretary of State. It's like they can really do things right now. And I think we're in for an incredible time in America.
Why
the next
did
decade.
nobody think to do this sooner? Because we've all been talking about wasteful government spending. I mean, it's nothing new. You see, like, the toilets going up.
Because all of these things are fucking memes. Because none of these things are real. When you say wasteful spending, like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. And I wish that people, when I asked Tom, Bill, you or whatever, I asked him, I was like, hold on, you think the federal debt should be zero? How much debt do you think a company should have, right? You would never say a company should have zero debt. That's a silly notion. And then it's like, okay, well, if you were trying to make big cuts in a company, like if private equity comes in and buys a company, or if ownership transfer happens, like, how do you make cuts in that company? No company merger, no company acquisition, no company has ever bailed itself out of a financially ruinous situation by going in and cleaning up waste. No, you do it with massive restructuring, which oftentimes means massive cost cutting, which oftentimes means cutting a lot of employees, firing a lot of people, abolishing, parts of your operations, outsourcing other things. Like, there's huge actual changes that you have to make. No company's ever been saved because somebody came in and is like, oh, we got rid of all the fraud and waste, and now the company is completely profitable. Like, it's just, what even is this story? Do I want to look this up? 1.7 million public toilet. A $1.7 million toilet in San Francisco's Noe Valley neighborhood is now open. It actually only cost the city around $300,000 after two companies donated materials and installation, but the original $1.7 million price tag has sparked major backlash. He prompted Governor Gavin Newsom to pause that state funding. He later released the money back to the city after officials promised to build 2 or 3 public toilets, not just one. The project put a spotlight on how difficult and expensive it can be to build in the city. Mayor London Breed. Bro, you know you can change your name legally in the United States. Mayor London Breed is now proposing legislation that she claims, and it's a woman, Miss Breed. I'm sorry. Is now proposing legislation that she claims will save time and money on small public projects like the Noe Valley toilet.
$1 million toilet in San Francisco's Noe Valley neighborhood is now.
Come on, we couldn't cover it in at least silver, if not gold.
Officially open. It actually cost the city some $300,000 after 2 companies donated the materials and the installation. However, the original $1.7 million price tag sparked a lot of backlash and prompted the governor to pause the state funding for it. He later released the money back to the city after officials promised to build 2 or 3 public toilets, not just one expensive one.
You kind of wonder how an item like this kind of budget could grow to this, because I mean, it basically seems like a very basic toilet. Where did all the money go? Flush down the toilet? Don't know.
The project put a spotlight on how difficult and expensive it can be to build in the city.
If I had to guess, the majority of the money here went to probably went to like whatever code bullshit they have to clear to build in the clusterfuck that is San Francisco. Not like like they said they donated materials and the cost of the project went from 1.7 million to 300K. Bullshit. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a microsecond. There's got to be, shouldn't there be like a public filing available for the cost here? This isn't $1 million+ in materials. I bet that this is like what they were greenlit for the budget or something. And this is what they ended up spending. They wrote it off. Oh my fucking God. Bro, San Francisco is a... Where's the meme? But keep in mind that you guys complain about, like, you guys will complain about how expensive it is to build a toilet or whatever. But then you say, like, well, the American dream, I don't want to live in a nasty, shitty apartment taking the subway or the bus with nasty, shitty smelling people. I want to have a house. Okay, well, here it is. Congratulations. Jesus fucking Christ. Contractors that bid for those jobs see it the same as you saw carpet cleaning for insurance payoffs. Well, sure, but like they're bidding against each other. We didn't bid for carpet cleaning jobs. We just showed up and we sold them. Like nobody's like getting competing contractors to come in. At the end of the day, this was a local project that likely had nothing to do with the federal government. Oh yeah, of course. Isn't San Francisco still one of the best walkable cities in the US? Is that, who says that? Is that true? Maybe downtown, maybe? Can you explain what you just saw to a European? I mean, any downtown US city is going to be decently walkable. These are just all single-family homes. All of these things that you're seeing right here are single-family homes. That's what this is. Do you guys have this phenomenon in Europe where there's rush hour traffic in the morning and in the evening when everybody's driving into the city and then everybody's driving out of the city? Is that a phenomenon that exists across like major European cities, or does that not make sense what I'm saying right there? Yes, that is a thing? Okay, just making sure.
Up in San Francisco that costs like $1 million for like a toilet.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main reason for it was the culture wasn't ready for it. You know, like the people that were like, oh, taxes are too high or government's not efficient or there's too many agencies, or you go to DC and there's these giant buildings where nobody's working and you're like, what the hell's going on here? I just don't think it was like culturally cool enough to move anything really. So like there was never going to be a great, you know, every now and again you'd get a politician, Rand Paul, I like a lot, obviously Libertarian Senator from Kentucky. It's like he gets in there and he constantly talks about budgets and what are we, you know, if we're giving.
We have it in London and we have the school run right before. I haven't been to too many parts of London, but I will say, I'm just so mind-fucked on LA, I think, actually. Like, because it's true for New York City as well. Like, New York City and London traffic is not that bad. It's pretty bad. But I think that LA has just been the worst traffic I've ever seen in the entire world. Just in spending so much time living in LA and then in hearing about places like London and New York, I expected to go there and it's like bumper to bumper. It takes you an hour to go, like any distance at all. I feel like LA is about as bad or worse than London traffic. Oh my God, LA is so bad. Oh my God, LA is so fucking bad. It's so bad. Oh my God, it's so bad. India and China have entered the chat. I'm only talking in the West. There was supposedly, I feel like I read a Wikipedia article on like the worst traffic jam in the world. Oh, this Chinese traffic, is this real? That it was so bad that people like just basically got out of their cars and left? The traffic jam slowed thousands of vehicles for more than 60 miles or 100 kilometers and lasted for 12 days. LA traffic isn't even that bad. Just don't drive during rush hour. Yeah, just don't drive between the hours of like 5 a.m. and 2 a.m. and you're good.
And And of course that.
Oh, wait, sorry. Somebody emailed me this clip.
Giving money, obviously, Libertarian Senator from Kentucky. It's like he buildings where nobody's working, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? I just don't think it was like culturally cool enough to move anything, really. So like there was never going to be a great, every now and again you'd get a politician, Rand Paul, I like a lot, obviously Libertarian Senator from Kentucky. It's like he gets in there and he constantly talks about budgets and what are we, if we're giving money to Ukraine, let's say, can we get a receipt? Like basic stuff. And he gets no traction with any of that, but he's, I think, respected by, let's say, smart people. I think they needed a cultural movement behind it. And I think largely what happened was once COVID hit and we saw just the absolute disastrous response across the board from the NIH and the CDC and the Department of Ed and just every department that you can think of, then suddenly there was...
Disastrous response how? What was bad? What would you do differently? It's just never... like in our personal lives, everybody knows this guy and you hate him. But for some reason, when things like abstract to politics, it becomes okay. Like everybody has that friend who just complains about fucking everything all the time. You want to go out to eat? Let's go to Applebee's. Oh, we always go there. Okay. I can drive. Oh, not in your car. Motherfucker, you don't even have a license. What do you guys want to do on Saturday? Oh, not this. Do you have any suggestions? Like, do you have any ideas? Do you want to say anything? Like, but when it comes to government, it's like, they don't work anywhere. They're all lazy. There's so much waste. All the worthless departments. It's all like, okay, what would you change, buddy?
There was enough of like a wake up around people. And then it's also because...
Also, yeah. Wait, what were all the... Hold on.
The absolute disastrous response across the board from...
Let's say we assume that disastrous response. Also, remember, okay? When the government does something bad under Trump, it's the government doing something bad. But when the government does something bad under a Democrat, it's X's administration. Biden's administration fucked this up. Biden's administration ruined this. Biden's DOJ, Biden's FBI, Biden's EPA. But it wasn't Trump's Health and Human Services Department. Why wasn't it Trump's Department of Education? Why wasn't it Trump's government? They're his cabinet picks. They're his appointments. Why doesn't Trump... No, don't say his name. They never say his name at all. They never say his name, ever. Why?
From the NIH and the CDC and the Department of Ed and just every department that you can think of. Then suddenly there was enough of like a wake up around people. And then it's also because of this. It's because of podcasts and people talking about things honestly in a way that they weren't seeing on media.
There was a wake up. Yeah. And then Trump lost the election. Do we just like memory hole all of 2020? Like the American response to all of those failures was Trump losing the election, right?
People. And then it's also because of this. It's because of podcasts and people talking about things honestly in a way that they weren't seeing on media. So there was just like a confluence of things, and I would say it was sort of perfect timing, and then the right group of people, and that we're on the precipice of fixing it. Which, by the way,
they did do a poor job with COVID. They fucked up the testing for COVID at the start, that no one can get a test. They also gave the hospitals almost no guidance, and there were a lot of mistakes that killed people. Yeah, I think that our COVID response was not great, but I think it's because we had no leadership. Donald Trump spent the first part of COVID literally denying that it even existed. There were tens of thousands of people that were sick in New York, and he's like, "Oh, I think we have like 6 cases here. It's ain't but a thing, no problem. It'll be. I don't even think we'll really get COVID, just a meme, like."
And I would say it was sort of perfect timing, and then the right group of people, and that we're on the precipice of fixing it. Which, by the way, will not be easy or anything else, but I do think some major things are going to happen.
But before we get into that, even if you think it is a bit overhyped, AI is suddenly everywhere, from molecular medicine to business efficiency, all the way to self-driving cars.
Molecular medicine.
And if it's not in your industry yet, and it will be very soon. But the problem is that AI requires a lot of speed and processing power, so how can you compete without costs spiraling out of control?
That's why it's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or our sponsor, OCI. For those unaware, OCI is a blazing fast and secure platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, plus all of your AI and machine learning workloads. OCI also costs 50% less for compute and 80% less for networking, so you're able to save a pile of money. Not to mention, thousands of businesses have already upgraded to OCI, including MGM Resorts.
Do you get tired of hashing out the same thing over and over again just for a lot of them to not change their minds? Okay, I do it because some people listen to me for sanity checks. I do it because there are some people in the center that listen and are drawn over because I'm at least saying things that are true. And I do it because in the future, if the political climate shifts or change, it's good that I've been like on message for the past several years about it. So,
Specialized bikes and Fireworks AI.
Right now, Oracle is offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI. This is for new US customers with minimum financial commitment, and the offer ends December 21st of this year. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/iced. That's oracle.com/ICED. Thank you so much, Oracle, for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast. So when you went into Twitter headquarters, you said that there were some issues with your Twitter account. What issues did you see? And also, what did you learn from the people that were running Twitter? Was there actually stuff that was being like shadow banned, like truly from the inside scoop?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like what was the problem there?
Yeah, so first off, it was like it's hard to even go back that year and a half or whatever. Was it 2 years even already that he bought that thing? It might even be about 2
I
years
feel like
now.
it's been more. Time
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, time has
I don't
gotten
know.
very weird lately. That's what endless scrolling does to all of our brains. We don't know.
terrible. I
Yeah,
hate it.
it really, it just like crushes the time shift or something. It was about 2 weeks after he bought it, and it was just chaos there because he was firing people left and right. You know, now it sounds like he's fired up to about 80% of the entire.
Republicans overcompensate. They are scared of Russia, so it's safer to kick around Ukraine. Fear, overcompensate with hypermasculinity. Called a traitor. Buy more Patriot gear. Psychology of a child. True. Andy Levy. Thanks for the $100.
That's what endless scrolling does to all of our brains. We don't know.
terrible. I
Yeah,
hate it.
it really, it just like crushes the time shift or something. It was about 2 weeks after he bought it, and it was just chaos there because he was firing people left and right. You know, now it sounds like he's fired up to about 80% of the entire company. But remember, when he got in, he immediately fired a whole bunch of people. So it was huge offices there. I mean, their commissary is massive, and there was just nobody there. I'm talking about even the next day when I went back at normal office hours, not when I was there just at 1 a.m. He also felt that there were people there that were still moles, you know, because they were still dealing with, we knew that there were people that either were working with the CIA or the FBI, or somebody government related was in at Twitter. So he didn't know how many people were there. He didn't.
What does that even mean, dude? You know that like every serious company in the United States that does anything related to like social media or communications or whatever is going to have some department that works with the federal government. Like the filings are public when you're billing the government for work for like subpoenas or stuff like all of this is public. What do you mean there are secret government moles? He's the owner of the company. He just has to look and see who's hired for what. Or are you talking about like actual like fucking CIA spies or FBI spies? Like what is he talking about? This is all also bullshit. He's just making all this up.
Here, the FBI or somebody government related was in at Twitter. So he didn't know how many people were there. He was worried that if he started firing people, that somebody could just take down Twitter altogether. I mean, that was part of the complexity of how do you fire the right people, because they could.
What does that mean? What, like a guy's gonna walk, there's like one server room for Twitter and American Psycho is gonna go in with an axe and start hacking apart the machines? What?
Could do things that would make it completely useless, and you just bought the thing for, you know, $44 bill. So anyway, when we sat down and started looking at my account, so I should back up for 1 second and say that, I've been on Twitter for like 12 or 13 years, something like that.
Hold on. Destiny, do you think companies abuse the H-1B visa program? I've seen this talking point on Reddit. Companies will intentionally post a job with a salary they know a U.S. resident won't take. It depends on... To get at the heart of that question is more complicated than you know, and it all really comes down to this concept of artificial wage. People use artificial when what they mean to say is there's a price that they don't like, because every price at the end of the day is theoretically either artificial or real, depending on how you look at it, right? What was the meme from that libertarian story I read? Like, well, hold on, the actual price of a thing is just whatever two people are willing to pay for it, you know? Like hiring more foreign work will put downward pressure on wages. That is true. It is in a domestic laborer's interest, at least in the short term, to be against foreign labor. But it's in the consumer's interests and it's in the business owner's interests to be for foreign labor. You want to hire more people. It means consumer prices are lower. It means that businesses can expand. So this is just a tension between employer and employee, or at least domestic employee and employer. Yeah, but okay.
My account. So I should back up for 1 second and say that, I've been on Twitter for like 12 or 13 years, something like that. And you can sort of see, and being on YouTube and all these things, you can sort of see when things are kind of working and it feels roughly right. It's not that you get the exact same amount of views every day or anything else, but you don't see like these insane spikes and then like you put out the same type of thing a few days later and get, no views. And I was going through all these like crazy versions of this for a while. And again, it wasn't just Twitter. I was seeing this on YouTube too. Anyway, I went in there and the programmers basically, they just kind of opened up the hood and showed me what was going on there. And it was really extraordinary because Jack Dorsey, who was the CEO of Twitter during the old days, if you remember, he testified under oath. Ted Cruz asked him, do you guys shadow ban? And he said no under oath. Now, he probably was using a little bit of a linguistic trick there because shadow ban isn't a technical term in some sense, right? So we could all define it a little bit differently. But in essence, do you do something that depresses views for some people in a feed that should be chronological? And he said no. They showed me. I mean, they showed me the...
I just hate, I'm sorry. Just, if you don't know what you're talking about, then just don't know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then just don't talk about it. Just don't talk about it. Shadow banning, everybody knew what shadow banning meant, okay? Everybody knows, well, in the tech world, shadow banning, when you ban somebody, you cut off their access to a platform. When you shadow ban somebody, you've hidden all of what they do from everybody else, but they're not aware of it. That's what a shadow ban is, right? So let's say somebody comes in and they start posting about how they think I'm a short midget gnome or whatever, okay? And I see them do that. and I don't want to ban the person because if I ban them, they're just going to make a new account and do it. I shadow ban them. When I shadow ban them, that means they type their messages, it goes into chat, and they see it, and they're like, I'm getting this guy. But they don't realize they've been shadow banned, and nobody else can see their messages. That's what a shadow ban is. Anything else is not a shadow ban. You can call it deprioritizing on an algorithm. You can call it deboosting. You can call it even hiding your shit. But like, it's literally definitionally, not only is it not a shadow ban, you're literally aware of the likes that you get on a post, and you can see when you're getting less likes, it's not even like fulfilling the purpose of a shadow ban. Suppressing your content is not a shadow ban. So if you don't,
technical term in some sense.
You're suppressing their engagement. Yeah, but that's not a shadow ban.
That's right. So we could all define it a little bit differently. But in essence, do you do something that depresses views for some people in a feed that should be chronological? And he said no. They showed me. I mean, they showed me the entire system. The entire system was built to do that. It wasn't that it wasn't a bug. It wasn't a bug. It was a feature. Like the entire system was literally built with endless amounts. I can't even tell you how many tags there were related to words or connections, or you tweeted at this person. Or
yes, welcome to running a successful business. It's not about shadow banning. You want to. This has been the goal of social media companies for like the past, since 2015, maybe that long. Your goal, if you're designing an algorithm or AI. Whatever you want to call it now, or the cloud, or the whatever the fuck you want to call it. Your goal is when somebody comes onto your website, you want them to stay there for as long as possible, and you want them to click through to more content. That's what you're going for. And if you notice, let's say that you're getting web traffic, okay? Let's say that you're getting web traffic, all right? You've got a website and you've got 2 links that people can click on. And let's say that you have 100 people click in, okay? And let's say 50 go to the top and 50 go to the bottom. And you notice that on the top, these 50 people that go in, let's say that 35 go through here, 15 go through here, or we say 10 go through here. You have an attrition rate of like 5 people drop off, okay? Let's say that for the people that click here, let's say that like 20 go here, maybe to like the same content, and like 5 go here, and you have an attrition rate like of 50% rate, half these people fall off. You're gonna boost this content. Of course you are, because you know that for every viewer that comes in and is presented with this, you got a 50% chance of losing that person from the site. They're going to go click off and do something else. And then for people that come up here, oh, well, we're holding these people much longer. This is why we're going to boost this content. This is every single social media website on the internet. Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube videos, all of these things. You ever wonder why on YouTube, like subscribing to channels doesn't mean anything anymore? Because YouTube doesn't care if you're subscribed to a channel. What they want is they're going to put, if you go to your For You page, they're going to put whatever content in here they think that you're likely to click on and keep clicking through. That's what they put in here. This is the only thing that matters on YouTube anymore. Who you're subscribed to or notifications doesn't mean fuck all. The only thing that matters is what's put here, because this is what YouTube is algorithmically determined is going to keep you on the site longer and keep clicking through to more videos. There's nothing even malicious or whatever about this. Like,
or you tweeted this topic on this day, like it was the craziest. I'm not a programmer also, so I'm sitting with programmers. And
this is also why, by the way, now this is a more aggressive form of this, but this is why Elon deprioritizes every single tweet that has a link to it. Because if you link something on a tweet, then a person is more likely to click that link and leave the site, right? You want to keep viewers on your platform as much as possible. Right? So when you hear me, you know how you hear me say things like, God, why does Twitter do video? It's so dog shit. Oh, Twitter video, right? When I'm complaining about that, the reason why Twitter does video is like, well, hold on, Destiny, if we don't host video, then you're going to link a YouTube link in your tweet. And if you link a YouTube link, that means that people are going to click off that link and they're going to leave the site. We want to keep them on Twitter as much as possible. So we're just going to host the video ourselves, right? That's why they do that.
At this person, or you tweeted this topic on this day, like it was the craziest. I'm not a programmer also, so I'm sitting with programmers, and so
oh, I can't do a poll. Fuck, I was going to ban Christopher again. Christopher said, Destiny, to be fair, that's not an Elon thing. A lot of places do that. How many people just heard me say every single social media website does this? How many people heard me say that? Like 10 times. Twitter started doing absolutely insane ad manipulation by auto-scrolling to ads on mobile. It's genuinely disgusting. I hate websites that do that. You know, there's a big porn GIF hoster, Red GIFs or whatever. Anytime you have a thing on your phone that auto scrolls to the next thing and doesn't let you control the in-between, that shit is the worst site design in the fucking world. Holy shit. Nothing makes me not want to use a site more than when you kind of scroll a little bit and then it auto yanks you to the thing. Oh my God.
Some of the, the code and stuff is going above my head, but the basic stuff that you're looking at of this word, that word, this topic connected to this hashtag, and you follow this person, so don't let it be seen. The entire system was built for that. So that was, I would say, it wasn't shocking to me because I knew something was wrong, and clearly
That's not wrong. Are they going to push back on anything? Is this the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, or is this the Republican Glaze podcast? Aren't these guys supposed to know any? I shouldn't say anything mean. I'm so sorry. Fuck. I should message. I think Jag messaged me a bit ago to go on. Fuck. But I wasn't in Vegas. I just what are we doing here? This is business 101. This is, hello?
Everyone that was paying attention knew something was wrong, but it was shocking in that the former CEO of Twitter testified that they don't do it. So
no, he testified they don't shadow ban. What you just talked about is not having a chronological feed.
I think that right now, the beauty of what's happening is that by Elon going in and opening this up, I don't do my own Facebook, my guys do that, but it seems that Facebook...
Did they push back on you, though? I thought your convo with them was pretty agreeable as well. Why would you push back on me? Everything I say is right. Obviously, they're not going to push back as much on me.
Gotten a little bit better. You mentioned Zuckerberg's, well, clearly he wasn't as involved in this election as he was before, so that there's an implication, okay, maybe we're fiddling around a little bit less on the electoral.
Bezos made some statements.
And Bezos, the Washington Post didn't even endorse Kamala. They didn't endorse a candidate at all. So you can see by...
Kamala! I like how they're so... It's crazy that... This is also why I know that it's bullshit, okay? This is also why I know that this is bullshit, okay? The pronunciation of her name. If you don't know a thing, there's something to be said for people getting it wrong half the time, right? You're guessing, 50-50, okay? The fact that every single conservative seems to not know how to pronounce her name, but they all pronounce it the same incorrect way, eat shit.
Even Bezos made some statements.
And Bezos, the Washington Post didn't even endorse Kamala. They didn't endorse a candidate at all. So you can see I think basically by Elon being brave, we needed somebody that was bigger than the me or Shapiro or even Rogan. We needed huge forces. And
oh my God, he's getting there. He's not going to say it directly, but we need an authoritarian. This is where authoritarianism starts. We can't do it. We need a guy who's larger than life to come in and bail us out of it. We need this one guy to just fucking take the reins. We need that benevolent dictator to just come in and show us the light.
That was bigger than the me or Shapiro or even Rogan. We needed huge forces. And I think when Elon basically teamed up with Trump, that fully shifted something in the culture. And that has now led to...
Why? You spanned this comment for 2 days. Can you explain how expedited removal is legal for certain illegal immigrants? It seems like an unconstitutional way to bypass due process. Maybe I understand. I don't know anything about... I don't know the intricate ins and outs of expedited removal for illegal immigrants. I don't know the process there. I don't know the laws there. I don't even know what laws govern people that are in this country that are non-citizens. I have no idea. I can't answer that question for you. Google it.
I think when Elon basically teamed up with Trump, that fully shifted something in the culture, and that has now led to this incredible moment.
Now, it seems like, speaking of that, a lot of people are going towards deregulation at this point, and they're thinking that's going to be better for our economy, better for the average person. Where do you think that deregulation...
We're not pushing back on any of that. We're just going to take it for granted that Twitter was just an evil, horrible company that was just kneecapping itself for years and years with these crazy false algorithms. This is the most anti-finance, this is an economically and financially illiterate take. This is supposed to be an this is supposed to be a finance podcast, isn't it? The Iced Coffee Hour is supposed to be about finance, no?
Something in the culture, and that has now led to this incredible moment.
Now, it seems like, speaking of that, a lot of people are going towards deregulation at this point, and they're thinking that's going to be better for our economy, better for the average person. Where do you think that deregulation could actually hurt people?
I mean, I'm a big deregulation guy, so I would try to deregulate as much as possible. We were talking right before we started. I mean, both of us left LA.
Ooh. They asked a hard question. He pivots immediately. Will they bring him back to it?
And they're thinking that's going to be better for our economy, better for the average person. Where do you think that deregulation could actually hurt people?
I mean, I'm a big deregulation guy, so I would try to deregulate as much as possible. We were talking right before we started. I mean, both of us left LA.
Is he going to say if we deregulate and get rid of the military?
Do anything to start a new business or build a studio in your home or literally do landscaping outside of your house or anything. There's an obscene amount of regulations and rules and, all these things that you have to pay and all of this stuff. So where could deregulation hurt as it pertains to tech specifically?
Or just the average person? For any industry. What do you think is going to get?
You can't think of a single regulation in the United States. You mentioned living in LA. How old are you? Do you know what LA looked like in the 90s? You can't think of a single single way that, oh, this might be today. This is with what was the population? Some of the pictures of what LA used to look like was fucking wild with a fraction of the population.
Impacted by that the worst.
I'm not really worried. Will there
for any industry? Like, what do you think is going to get?
Like, this should be the end of the podcast. It should be, okay, well, we're going to keep asking you this question for an hour and 20 minutes, and we're going to try to think of a single regulation from government. None of them are good. Not a single one is good. No regulations. Not a single one.
Impacted by that the worst.
I'm not really worried. Like, will there be something down the pike that they'll figure? I don't know. If you had no building codes, I think there's probably ways you could privatize a lot of that stuff, or at least make it a little more local focused than federally focused. I'm actually not worried about that at all. Like, I'm sure there is something, right? There clearly they will do something, and there will be unintended consequences. I think it's all a risk worth taking right now. Like, to me, if you just delete it, as Vivek said, if you just deleted the Department of Education tomorrow, we'll see what happens on the other side.
That's a risk that you want to take. We have one of the most productive and educated workforces in the United States of America. We literally have to fucking gatekeep Asian people from going to our colleges because there are so many of them that want to come to the United States to get educated in some of these prestigious universities, right? Like, you want to just destroy that. You just want to destroy that and see what's left? Like, why do you hate America so much? Why do you hate this fucking country so much? As much as people might make fun of us for some things, because America is definitely at the extremes. Like, we do have issues with uneducated people in the society, sure, but we also have some of the most prestigious educational institutions in the world. And we have those without the millennia or whatever the fuck, the centuries and centuries of prestige, right? That I'm sure in Europe, some of these are fucking 700 years old. I don't know how old some of the English universities are.
And I actually think it's going to be a hell of a... Well,
just put it back.
I mean, you can, because it's a giant building and those people will need jobs. But you know what? It's not going to be. That's the thing. None of these agencies are doing what they set out to do. The EPA was basically set out to kind of keep an eye on companies that were dumping sewage into the water. But it basically became a law-writing agency. So these things have become way too big. They have way too much power.
They can't write laws.
And I think if you eliminated virtually all of them, I mean, their goal is to eliminate about 300 of them. But if you eliminated virtually all of them, then what would happen? Well, most policies would be kicked back to the states, which is exactly what the founders intended.
That's... Anytime a conservative says anything about the founders, Jimmy Carter is he actually dead? Is this a reputable account? Rip on Jimmy Carter. Hold on. If I get a 960, I can bring him back to life. 1 second. Okay, he's dead. No more vampire Jimmy Carter. Or zombie Carter.
And I think that would happen. Well, most policies would be kicked back to the states, which is exactly what the founders intended. And
how do you kick back to the states, like, regulation of a river that runs through multiple states? Like, how does that work? Like, when you talk about the founders intending things, the founders literally understood that there were going to be some things that were not beneficial to some states, but beneficial to other states. That's the whole reason why we have a federal government, because there are things that can be in the interest of all of us that might not be in the interests of certain states at certain points in time. That was the whole point of the federal government.
I think that for the most part, I live in Miami. I want most of the things that I have to deal with in my life to be dealt with in Miami, and then from there, Florida. And then the stuff that we all have to deal with, say the border, that should be dealt with the federal government. But the less agencies and middlemen, I mean, this is what Trump, he started the thing about the deep state 8 years ago. Nobody really talked about that. We didn't really realize, boy, there's this thing in DC that just exists. It just exists, this middle management, bureaucratic nonsense. And finally, people are seeing it. So I think, I'm telling you, they're going to do a lot. It is going to be like Malay in Argentina, and it's going to happen very quickly.
What do you think the role of the government should be?
Not much. I would say the founders basically got it completely right, that everything should be dealt with at the state and local level, and then the federal government should have a couple things that they're supposed to do. So that would be border, make sure the states aren't warring with each other, interstate commerce, couple things like that, foreign policy, which back then was way less of a big issue as it is now. The government shouldn't do much, and especially as technology innovates and as AI comes around, like, there's just going to be more and more ability for you to live the way you want without governmental interference. What
AI is going to fix environmental regulations?
does the government do particularly well? Not much. And I say that as someone that lives in Florida with a highly competent government. So, for example, 2 years ago we had Hurricane Ian, basically a Category 5 that hit Southwest Florida, demolished Fort Myers, Sanibel, Captiva, some of the barrier islands there. Immediately after the hurricane, everybody on the news was saying to rebuild the Sanibel Causeway, which is about 4 miles, was going to take 3 years. That's what everybody was saying. DeSantis basically had it rebuilt in a month. 4 miles, some of the barrier islands there. 5 that hit Southwest Florida, demolished Fort Myers, Sanibel, Captiva, some of the barrier islands there.
How much federal aid did Biden approve? More than $3.31 billion in federal grants, disaster loans, and flood insurance payments have been provided to the state of Florida and to households after Hurricane Ian to help survivors jumpstart their recovery. FEMA has provided $792 million to households and nearly $400 million to the state for emergency response, while the U.S. Small Business Administration has provided $1.2 billion in disaster loans, and the National Flood Insurance Program has paid $919 million in claims. So here, the deep state is good, I guess.
Immediately after the hurricane, everybody on the news was saying to rebuild the Sanibel Causeway, which is about 4 miles, was going to take 3 years. That's what everybody was saying. DeSantis basically had it rebuilt in a month because he brought in the right people. He cut regulation. I actually met one of the contractors at DeSantis's re-election night. A guy came up to me and said that he was one of the contractors that worked on it. And he said, Dave, I just want to tell you that this guy, he basically brought all the best contractors down. He took everybody to the bridge and basically said, what do we need to do? We gave him our recommendations and he started making it happen the next day. That's proper competent governance. We're just so not used to that.
Did this even happen? Is this even a real story? Is DeSantis like a fucking expert bridge builder engineer guy? Like, he's making it sound like DeSantis was like on the ground with his fucking yellow construction vest on. Is there pictures of this, or?
Used to what you fled in California, an ever-growing state that taxes endlessly and punishes people for success. And then it's like, how is it that I have nice, clean roads in Florida? How is it that we don't have homeless people? We don't have no homeless people, but why do things work with no income tax in Florida? And why does Cali tax the high hell out of you and have much worse services and much worse infrastructure and a whole series of other problems? So I would say as little as the government can do is what I want it to do.
What about leaving it to the private sector?
I would leave as much as possible to the private sector. I mean, this is where, okay, so should there be some regulations around environment, let's say, because you don't want every company dumping sewage into the river? That's like the base one that most people would ask about. Yeah, I think you can have some basic regulations around that.
But sewage into the atmosphere is okay, right? I like how they always bring up like the sewage into the river, and that's the only thing, right? Wait, oh, no, yeah.
But most things, I see the thing is capitalism, the beauty of capitalism is that someone's always trying to make a better mousetrap. So if you're a company that it is exposed to be doing horrible things, and this is also the beauty of the internet, by the way, because now we can expose things a lot quicker because we all have phones and we all have cameras and all these things. It's like if you're...
GDP is not the only measure of the success of a given thing or whatever as well, but like when you talk about like California is taxed to high hell and they're fucking destroyed for it. Your nominal GDP for California is $105,000. For Florida, it's $74,000. It's not bad, but they're in the bottom half of states in terms of just like raw economic output. But okay.
If you're a company and whatever you're making glasses, and it turns out that actually you're dumping a ton of toxic sludge into the water or into the fields behind you, and there's schools there. It's like that will now be exposed very quickly, and there will be more competition for that.
Because I remember a while ago, there's that big oil spill. I think it was like 2008 or 2009.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who was like, oh, that company had that big oil spill, but they're 5 cents cheaper. I'm not going to go there.
Sure,
they just look at the price. They're like, all right, well, it's cheaper. That oil spill, I didn't see it.
Right. Well, it's always tricky to get people to care about things that aren't happening in their backyard,
Yes.
right? Right. When it happens in your backyard, then it's like not in my backyard, and then suddenly you're screaming about it. But if it happens
true.
miles away, you don't realize all the reasons that it will potentially affect you or anything else. I think the world's changing. I think the world is changing in massive ways. And it's deep. It's definitely connected to what we're talking about with Twitter and YouTube and everything else. It's like the media used to just control that Overton window in such a tight way that the stories that we would see were so slim in nature and leaving out so much. And now it's like if there's an oil spill and something really terrible is happening, it's going to be covered in new media in a completely new way, and it will get...
Yeah, like they lie about it. What is this idea that media wasn't covering oil spills? Or what? The media wasn't... mainstream media, what were the disaster examples? Always push for examples. What were the big events that mainstream media wasn't covering?
Things that aren't happening in their backyard,
Yes.
right? Right. When it happens in your backyard, then it's like not in my backyard. Then suddenly you're screaming about it. But if it happens miles away, you don't realize all the reasons that it will potentially affect you or anything else. I think the world's changing. I think the world is changing in massive ways, and it's deep. It's definitely connected to what we're talking about with Twitter and YouTube and everything else. It's like the media used to just control that Overton window in such a tight way that the stories that we would see were so slim in nature and leaving out so much. And now it's like if there's an oil spill and something really terrible is happening, it's going to be covered in new media in a completely new way, and it will get out there more. Can you force people to care about it enough so that there are different regulations? Maybe, but the Exxon Valdez was a horrific. The Exxon Valdez was a horrific oil spill. We have regulations against oil spills. The captain, I think, was drunk and fell asleep. Like, there's no system that's perfect. So I would personally, I would just be reining in all of that, and then you have to hope that enough good competition is out there so that companies will do better.
What about tariffs? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like people have
We're going to go through this whole conversation saying tariffs are not real. Trump won't do tariffs. He only uses those to negotiate with people. And then these guys aren't going to bring up how tariffs actually did happen in the United States, and they already harmed U.S. workers, and the federal government had to bail those people out. I think soybean farmers are the biggest example of people that were hurt by tariffs. But did he answer anything at all? He just completely sidestepped their pushback? Nope, he didn't answer a single thing. Did he say something? What would hurt if, or what's a regulation that helps? He didn't answer a single thing. He just said, well, let's get rid of all of them and see.
a very poor understanding of tariffs.
They really do. We played a lot of videos of people being very confused about tariffs on my show lately.
The thing that confuses me so much is
what does that mean? We've played a lot of videos about people being confused about tariffs. What do you? Oh boy. Oh no. Tariff trade policy. Wait, let me just watch this 3-minute.
Of course they're going to come down. Of course, this is just negotiating.
The incoming Commerce Secretary is Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick was the former, I think he is he still the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald? He is still the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald, if you don't know his story, they were the company that had a couple of the top floors at the World Trade Center during 9/11, and I think he lost over 2,000 employees. I mean, it's just absolutely insane what happened to that organization. In any event, he is the...
That was like everybody that died on 9/11 was one of his employees, or I'm sure those two statements aren't connected, but it was very strange to say those like back to back.
Still the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald, if you don't know his story, they were the company that had a couple of the top floors at the World Trade Center during 9/11, and I think he lost over 2,000 employees. I mean, it's just absolutely insane what happened to that organization. In any event, he is the incoming Commerce Secretary, and here he talks about Trump's policy on tariffs as a negotiation tactic. There's a lot of controversy around whether tariffs work. You know, if you tell China we're going to put a tax on all the incoming things, is the price of goods going to go up? We'll be able to make up for it on the American side. This is an interesting debate to have, and here's Lutnick on tariffs and the policy.
And of course, it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan?
I hear this talking point so much, and now I feel like I should research it because conservatives have like 3 slogans that they use for everything. Is this true? Do I need to go research this? Because I hear this talking point brought up all the time that there's 100% tariffs on all these vehicles. Like, is this actually true, or is this just like a total bullshit? Does Europe have 100% tariffs on U.S. vehicles? If somebody find this, you have it, okay. Oh, Fords are reasonably common in Europe. Oh yeah, I remember I lost that time guesser thing because I saw a Ford and I was like, oh wait, we don't sell Fords in Europe, right? And it was, I think it was Portugal, wasn't it? How many largest Ford markets? This isn't gonna tell me what I want. You look up the new lead and copper rule the EPA is putting out for cities to replace service lines. Pretty sure people en masse don't want lead in their water supply. Okay. Europe got the RS before us. I think that's because they made it there, right? It's for exports. Okay. All right.
100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound?
Of course.
Why didn't Trump do that in the 4 years when he was president? Why didn't he do that when he was president then? Why didn't that happen already? What's going to change this time? And what's the excuse going to be when it doesn't happen?
Going to come down. Of course, this is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question
it has to be across the board. That's how tariffs work. Otherwise, they don't work.
Whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
Well, when you're running for office, you make broad statements so people understand you. Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands.
Oh, this is just a Trump dick stuff. Who is this guy? What, does he solely survive on fucking Trump loads? Like, is that all of his sustenance, or is it just like a percentage of his diet?
Don't tariff.
These are just the, he's just repeating the tariffs are an amazing thing.
Understand you. Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands don't tariff stuff we don't make, right? If we don't make it and you want to buy it, I don't want to put the price up. It's pointless. But use tariffs to build in America. If we want to make it in America, tariff it, or if we're competing with a tariff it. But you got to remember, we need to protect the American worker. Finally, someone's going to protect the American worker, and Donald Trump is here to protect the American worker.
But not the American consumer? Like,
guys, isn't it just so damn refreshing? We are going to have competent people in government. Like the way that Nick just laid that out, it's very simple to understand. If basically...
Oh, that guy's going to be our next commerce secretary based. Okay, gotcha.
We try to sell a car in China. China has a 100% tariff. So no American cars will be sold in China. It just economically doesn't make sense. Sorry, in Japan, no, it doesn't economically make sense because they're going to put such a tariff on it that no one's going to buy an American car, and then they can keep all of their industry within their own country. The idea is, oh, we're going to tell you, hey, we're going to put a tariff when you try to bring things into our country too, and then there will be a negotiating process. And then it just won't be that American jobs and companies and workers get screwed. Right now, it's a one-way screwing. We'll have a double screwing, and that's better for everybody because when people are being screwed equally, people are also winning equally.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I studied economics in college, but at the same time, now people have very convincing arguments on both sides of the aisle. People on the left say that people on the right don't understand tariffs, and people on the right say that the people on the left don't understand tariffs. What's your understanding of tariffs? And then I'll ask you to steelman that argument.
Sure. So,
oh, the steelman argument. Oh, boy.
My version, I'll tell you why I agree with Trump's proposition for tariffs first, because that's what sort of brought this back, right? I mean, basically what's happening right now is that other countries are putting huge tariffs on our products, so we can't, as I played a video on my show, Mr. Wonderful, what's his name from Shark Tank? Kevin O'Leary, he's great. He was basically explaining that, we can't sell an American car in Japan because they put 100% tariff on it, so no idiot in Japan is going to be like, man, I really want that GM so bad, I have to have that Escalade that I'm going to pay for it, right? And we don't do the reverse on their stuff here. So Trump is in effect using the threat of tariffs to get some sort of tariff parity, and then the hope would be that we would have enough competition in America to deal with that, and hopefully we would, I mean, from my perspective, I would then want people to be buying more American, but I don't want it to be exorbitant to import cars or anything else.
You have to push this. It will be more expensive. Definitionally so. Should always make them own that point. Admit that the average U.S. car, our cars are really expensive right now, right? I've heard that. I haven't been in the car market in a long time, but aren't cars really expensive? Aren't even used cars really expensive right now? Own that not talking about. Make them own that point. It will be more expensive to buy cars in America. That will just be true. If tariffs happen against any market, that product will be more expensive in America. If it's not, the tariff's not doing its job. That's definitionally what tariffs are supposed to do, is raise the cost of a particular thing.
Because we should be able to buy whatever we want to buy. But I'm basically with Trump on this, that we have to at least threaten a little bit. It's sort of like Trump with NATO the first time around. His whole thing, everyone was like, he's trying to destroy NATO. And Trump was like, well, I'm not trying to destroy NATO, but why is it that we foot the bill on NATO and nobody else does, And then what did Trump get out of it? Well, suddenly a whole bunch of other countries started paying into NATO as well. So I think that it needs to be a little bit more of an even game. That would be my basic version of it.
Like they should ask, what does it mean when a country pays into NATO? What does that mean? Like a NATO bank account?
Trump with NATO the first time around. His whole thing, everyone was like, he's trying to destroy NATO. And Trump was like, well, I'm not trying to destroy NATO.
Everyone's saying Japan has 0% tariffs on American cars. Okay.
But why is it that we foot the bill on NATO and nobody else does, And then what did Trump get out of it? Well, suddenly a whole bunch of other countries started paying into NATO as well. So I think that it needs to be a little bit more of an even game. That would be my basic version of it.
It makes sense if we were to try to get the other countries to stop levying tariffs on the United States. Then I feel like that would help out a ton. But in terms of just...
But are they tariffing the United States? Like, shouldn't we start there? Shouldn't that be like our first step for investigation? It's like, well, hold on. Do they tariff us? Maybe we should start there, no? Instead of just like taking that for granted.
Like increasing tariffs from other countries trying to sell in America.
I think his argument is, if we say to Japan, if there's a 100% tariff, that's what Mr. Wonderful said, Kevin O'Leary. If there's a 100% tariff on American cars going into Japan, then if we say, okay, there's a 100% tariff on Japanese cars coming to America, then suddenly they'll be like, okay, well, actually, we're going to lower this. So I think he's using it as a point of leverage, right? I think what the other version
it's that easy. All you have to do is just say like, oh, hey, we're going to tariff. They're like, oh, okay, let's just make all these things cheaper. It's that easy, guys.
It would be if we were trying to steel man the other version. It's something like, oh, okay, now Trump's going to do it, and they're going to do it, and we're going to get in this like escalating price war. But that's not really how competition works. The idea is, oh, if you guys are going to have this crazy tariff, we're just going to do the exact same thing. And then the car manufacturers of Japan might be like, boy, this isn't such a great idea because we can't sell in America anymore because it's too expensive to go there. So again, this is another one where I just think competition and why do we have such insane rules? You know what I mean? Like, can either one of you make the argument for that? You know, why do we allow this with China?
Is it even happening? Why don't we start there? Is it happening? What's our evidence that this is even happening?
China and Japan and plenty of other countries.
Why try to make the argument?
Well, I think...
No, see, like, you're already buying into his premise. Like, what's the proof that this is even the case?
We need cheap labor. I mean, when it really comes down to it, right? So if we're importing a lot from China, it saves the average person here a significant amount of money.
Well, at least he's kind of bringing up the consumer side. All right.
They don't really see or notice the deficit in terms of national debt. It makes no difference for them.
So
but if they're able to get an iPhone for $1,000 instead of $3,000, the average person says, I don't care.
Well, it goes to your...
So I think significant amount of money. They don't really see or notice the deficit in terms of national debt. It makes no difference for them.
So I
think they're able
trade deficit has nothing to do with our debt or budget deficits. It's not. These two things are different things, but okay.
Like an iPhone for $1,000 instead of $3,000, the average person says, I don't care.
Well, it goes to your other point that it's hard to make people care about things properly, and they don't really think about where their iPhone is coming from, or the women that are literally using their fingers to, you know, put the chips in and all that stuff. But
I really wish you would answer. I am not a troll. What? Stock damage joke. When you spam in all, actually, you're permabanned. You're schizophrenic. When you make your next account, try doing it without spamming the same question with all caps over and over and over again. Holy shit.
But I would say basically, if you can create a situation, and I think it's fairly obvious Trump is going to do this, if you can create a situation where other countries feel that they can't just rip off America anymore, that ultimately they will lower tariffs too. Like, it's actually insane. We make some pretty good cars in America. We didn't, 50 years ago, but we do now, actually. It's like, why can't we sell them in Europe? It's because of the tariffs. So you threaten them, basically say, hey, we're going to do to you what you've been doing to us, and then they might just come around. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see if he actually does it. And
go back 30 seconds.
Wait, the women that are literally using their fingers to, put the chips in and all that stuff. But I would say basically, if you think about where their iPhone is coming from, or the women that are literally using their fingers to, put the chips in and all that stuff. But I would say basically, if you can create a situation, and I think...
Does he think that iPhones are built with like low skill labor, random...
It's fairly obvious Trump is going to do this. If you can create a situation where other countries feel that they can't just rip off America anymore, that ultimately they will lower tariffs too. Like, it's actually insane. We make some pretty good cars in America. We didn't, 50 years ago, but we do now, actually. It's like, why can't we sell them in Europe? It's because of the tariffs. So you threaten them, basically say, hey, we're going to do to you what you've been doing to us, and then they might just come around. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see if he actually does it and what comes to fruition.
I think it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. I feel like that's kind of the theme of this entire presidency. It's like,
do you think that tariffs are absolutely bad? I think that people on the right want tariffs and talk about tariffs for the wrong reasons, but I think there are valid reasons why we should have tariffs right now, e.g. to counter China's influence. Tariffs are just a thing. A thing is a thing. It's like, I don't know if I would ever say like an economic policy is good or bad. They just do certain things. Okay, that's all economic policies do. They do certain things. If you want to talk about what it does, then talk about what it does honestly. Don't lie about some things and then be truthful about other things. So if you want to say, for instance, that like, oh, well, we're going to tariff cars to make our own local manufacturing more competitive in the United States. I mean, that is what a tariff would do. Tariffing other countries would make our automobile manufacturing more competitive in U.S. markets. That's true, because it would increase the cost of or it would increase the price to the consumer for other cars. But it's also going to raise the cost or the price to the American consumer. That's another thing that's going to happen, right? So you just be honest about that. You can't just lie and try to get all the positives from it and talk about none of the negatives. That's bullshit.
It'll be interesting to see kind of how it all
We'll not see feedback. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I'm mostly thinking like RFK even, like what'll even happen with that. I think it's all just like, it's going to be such a
The debate is at 8 tonight. I put it in the title. Sorry.
massive shift.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
Well, we're not used to doing amazing things in America, at least in, you guys are probably, how old are you guys?
34. 26.
26.
No, I'm sorry. It's at 6, not 8. My bad.
I'm 48, so you guys have a couple years on you. Like, we're just not used to doing amazing things anymore. America, we sent people to the moon. I mean,
we're not used to doing amazing things anymore. Remember what I said? We can't take credit for anything that America has done anymore. It's impossible. We don't get credit for anything. We don't get credit for any of the vaccines. We don't get credit for any of our like pharmaceutical or medical research. For the first time ever, there are actually like drugs that are showing promise for things like Alzheimer's disease. Like Elon Musk came here. Like he's talking about going to the moon. We have like SpaceX and Tesla. I would say that regardless of my hatred for Elon Musk, which is quite extensive at this point, like I think Tesla moved the electric automobile industry forward like fucking at least a decade, right? Nobody was taking electric vehicles seriously until Tesla. Anybody that tells you differently is coping hard. Oh, what about the Prius or the Volt? Or like nobody gave a fuck about electric vehicles until Tesla, for real. These are American things. America ensures free trade throughout the entire fucking world. We have the biggest, baddest military still. That's important. I mean, like what, like all of the biggest like tech companies and social media companies and are the like.
I'm 48, so you guys have a couple years on you. Like, we're just not used to doing amazing things anymore. America, we sent people to the moon. I mean, we were in a space race.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Have a couple years on you, at least in, you know, you guys are probably, how old are you guys?
34.
34.
26.
26. So I'm 48, so you guys have...
I'm 48, therefore I remember the fucking moon landing in 69? What is that? What?
A couple years on you. Like, we're just not used to doing amazing things anymore. America, we sent people to the moon. I mean, we were in a space race. Like, we used to do incredible things. Elon is actually doing incredible things, but as a nation, we haven't been doing incredible things anymore. We've done a lot of unimpressive things, I would say. And if you look at a lot of our architecture and our infrastructure, and we've stopped dreaming in a lot of ways. So it seems...
Infrastructure? Isn't that government spending? What are you talking about? Are these the things that we need more of?
To me that Trump now represents a restoration of the American dream. That it's like, we're going to get government off your back. We're going to look in and be like, well, what did happen during COVID? And why did we inject all these kids with this stuff? And why did we force doctors out of work if they didn't want to be injected with it? And why did we think we could lock people in their home? And how did these agencies get so powerful? And why did nobody get fired? Like, we're actually going to look under the hood, to use a reference I used before with Twitter. We're going to look under the hood and be like, wow, we have been wasting insane amount of money. We have been doing these crazy military adventures overseas without really understanding why or explaining it to the American people. And I think all of that, I think when people see a little bit more of how screwy things were, and then they start realizing, boy, it didn't have to be this way, I think it will get more people more and more involved. I also think they're going to decentralize a bit of the DC power and move some of the agencies out. And I think when you do that, you know, it's like, why is the Department of Agriculture in DC? I don't know, maybe it should be in Iowa. Like, once you actually do that.
Does Iowa have more agricultural output than California? Or does he just really hate California? Agriculture sectors, or agricultural output by state, USA, absolute value? What? Oh, Iowa's number 2 at least. I guess Iowa and Nebraska are close, but Texas and California are close. 30, but what the fuck grows in Texas? I thought Texas was a boring ass desert. What are they making down there? Agricultural products, Texas. Oh, does agriculture also just by default include animal agriculture? Vegetables, citrus, corn, wheat, peanuts, pecans, sorghum, mohair. These are not real things. Is the world's 5th most important cereal crop. What? Mohair is a soft, lustrous, and durable fabric or yarn made from the hair of the Angora goat. I don't believe this. This is not real.
Then the power center will be less powerful, and you will be giving back more power to the people.
Destiny, what the fuck do you think is going to happen if we get rid of the Department of Education or Energy? The U.S. is going to collapse. Do you know how long we went in this country without those departments? Do you even know why they're set up? What? You know, we also went like a long time in history without like soap or clean water. What do you mean? We live in a different world today than what the world was 150 years ago. What kind of a question is that? Or statement is that?
People. Like, once you actually do that, then the power center will be less powerful, and you will be giving back more power to the people.
It's interesting. That reminded me that we were talking to somebody, and they were telling us about government spending. And they said that, and they've experienced this firsthand, where they had a certain budget for an aircraft. And because they did...
Why does everybody use the same fucking story? I already know what he's going to say. First of all, I'm curious if this actually fucking happens now, okay? Number one, no, well, I've seen this happen firsthand. But number 2, I've seen this happen firsthand because I know it happens in the private sector too. This happens in the private sector as well. He's going to tell the story about like, they have a budget where they've given us $500 million to spend, but we can do it for $400 million, but we have to spend the extra $100 million, so we get the same budget for next year.
That, and they've experienced this firsthand, where they had a certain budget for an aircraft. And because they didn't get the budget, like they got really close to, the budget by the end, but they had to like use up.
They have to use it, so they get more.
So what they ended up doing is just like flying planes from coast to coast.
Because then they
just to be able to hit and say, okay, we reached our budget, and now we can get more money.
Like, do you think this doesn't happen in the private sector? Can you just ask that question? Do you think this doesn't happen in the private sector? That departments fight for bigger budgets? Like what?
Money the next year, and if we don't do that, then they're going to cut.
They literally cut the budget. And by the way,
flying empty planes. That was back and forth.
So that's a perfect example of what's wrong with the government.
What about in private industry? You don't think this happens?
Business could operate this way, right? You could never operate that way. You would never be like, I have to spend more, otherwise.
Wait. They're going to cut.
They literally cut the budget. And by the way,
flying empty planes. That was back and forth.
So that's a perfect example of what's wrong with the government. No business could operate this way, right?
Okay. This is my experience in 2007, 2008, okay? Because when millennials came to the job market, we got fucked for real. Not like you Gen Zers think you got fucked because you missed your prom because of COVID, okay? You incels weren't having a date anyway, okay? We got actually fucked coming into that job market. 2007 was 2008. These were scary times, okay? The worst thing about the job market in 2007, 2008, the worst thing about that job market was companies looked at their departments, okay? And companies were like, okay, the economy is fucked, guys, especially working in the casino. Entertainment got hit really hard. Okay. We normally run you guys with 10 employees. We got to let go of 5 of you. I'm so sorry. Okay. We're going to have to skeleton shift this stuff, guys. Okay. Work hard. Don't worry. The economy's going to come back and we're going to make it. Okay. It's like, all right, fuck it. You cut half of them. The years go on. Okay. 2008, 2009. Okay. Economy's rebounding a bit. Management's looking at those 5 people and they're like, you know what? I think you got it. I think you guys got it. I think you guys are doing okay. I think we can just keep this at these levels of employment. Fuck you, you know? And then I feel like on the flip side, the incentive this creates on the department is like, okay, could I run my shift with 1 employee? Yeah, but I'm scheduling 2 or 3 because I know that if I show my management that I can run this shift with just me or just 1 employee, they're going to make me run it with 1 employee. Fuck that and fuck you, right? And I feel like there's always this tension between departments where it's like, I'm not going to fucking skeleton. You're not giving me the extra money. Why would I work 10 times harder for the same fucking pay? I'm either salaried or hourly. I'm not getting paid fucking commission here, right? This tension exists all the time between fighting for budgets and departments and trying to ensure that you've got the most amount of money available to you. This happens in government and it happens in the private sector. The idea that this doesn't happen here, a business would never do this. A business would never ever. Give me a break. Come the fuck on.
By the way, flying empty planes. That was back and forth.
That's a perfect example of what's wrong with the government. No business could operate this way, right? You could never operate that way. You would never be like, I have to spend more, otherwise I won't magically get more money because there's no supply and demand there or anything else. It makes no sense. But that's how the government has operated. So why is it that the government, to build a bathroom in DC on the street costs 10 times what it would cost if somebody else was doing it? Like, this is consistently what we've seen with the government. So I think just pulling back on all of that stuff. And that's exactly what Doge is going to do. They're going to look at all of that. What did they just find out this week? The Pentagon has literally
passed its 7th audit.
7th audit.
Do not a single person on this thing is even going to know what that means, right? They're all just going to say that like, oh, they failed the audit means that the money is gone and nobody knows where it is and we don't even know it. Not a single person here has even read the article that they're linking, are they?
They're going to look at all of that. What did they just find out this week? The Pentagon has literally
passed its 7th audit.
7th audit. Like they're missing like $300 billion.
The difference is most businesses create an incentive to cut costs, while most government agencies do not. Government agencies do have an incentive to cut costs because Congress has to fight over their budget every year when they go to do their spending bills. For businesses, the entire business, the shareholders have an incentive to cut costs. Your department doesn't. Remember the tension. Remember the tension. Remember who's getting paid for what. Labor is a cost of doing business. Labor in the short term wants to hurt the business. If you're labor, you're never fighting to make the business better. You're fighting to get paid more money to do less work. That's what you should be doing. That's what labor is doing. You're a cost of doing business. The business is trying to minimize the amount that they pay you and extract the most amount of work, right? And for the government, like that function is essentially shifted over to Congress, to lawmakers, right? Like, well, you fight for a lower budget, you fight for a higher budget, and then the departments have to justify their budgets or whatever. Like, yeah, there's all these different incentives at different levels of different things, but it's not like there's no incentive in government to bring things under cost. Like, this is why there's a OIG, Office of Inspector General, that looks for fraud and waste on like every major department. Like, it's there. It just manifests a bit differently.
It's like, it's completely insane. Or somebody there, even a year ago, there was something with one of the checks we wrote to Ukraine where a comma was in the wrong spot and we actually accidentally gave them an extra couple. Yeah.
You're kidding.
My interview, the checks we wrote to Ukraine where a comma was in the wrong spot and we actually accidentally.
Pentagon accounting error provides extra $6.2 billion for Ukraine military aid. Do we want to look at this? Pentagon, extra $6.2 billion. The source on this, it says Washington News. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Pentagon said Tuesday that it overestimated the value of the weapons it had sent to Ukraine by $6.2 billion over the past 2 years, about double early estimates, resulting in a surplus that will be used for future security packages. Overestimated the value of the weapons. Wait, doesn't this mean that they thought that they'd sent more than we actually did? So we actually sent less? Or am I... Also, this isn't in monetary aid. This was in weapons sent. Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh said a detailed review of the accounting error found that the military services used replacement costs rather than the book value. Oh, I remember hearing about this. Replacement costs rather than the book value of equipment that was pulled from Pentagon stocks and sent to Ukraine. She said final calculations show that there was an error of $3.6 billion in the current fiscal year and $2.6 billion in the 2022 fiscal year, which ended last September 30th. As a result, the department now has additional money in its coffers to use to support Ukraine as it pursues its counteroffensive against Russia. And it comes as the fiscal year is wrapping up and congressional funding was beginning to dwindle. So that...
Pentagon has
literally has its seventh audit.
Seventh audit, like they're missing like $300 billion. It's completely insane. Or somebody there, even a year ago, there was something with one of the checks we wrote to Ukraine where a comma was in the wrong spot and we actually accidentally gave them.
Like, just think about also how naive, even business, how naive are you that you think that's how, what do you think Biden just signs a check and he writes a number on a check and then it just goes to like into the Bank of Ukraine?
Extra couple, yeah.
You're kidding.
My interview with Rand Paul will have the exact numbers on that. But there's all sorts of evidence of.
Wait, and he says he even interviewed Rand Paul about this?
Accidentally gave them an extra couple. Yeah.
You're kidding.
My interview with Rand Paul will have the exact numbers on that. But there's.
My interview with Rand Paul will have the exact numbers on it. Dave Rubin, Rand Paul. Rand Paul makes Dave Rubin go quiet with this chilling warning 2 weeks ago. Is that the full, is there a larger interview or something? Or
I'm told that we have Senator Rand.
This was about the same time. Show transcript, Control F Ukraine. Okay, we'll listen to the first 2 minutes of this. I'm curious.
Told that we have Senator Rand Paul.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. Obviously, a whole bunch going on in the world right now, and I want to preface all of what we're going to do because it's mostly going to be about Syria and some of the international stuff that's happening. Is that years ago, before I supported Donald Trump, but I was kind of coming around. One of the reasons that I got there is that you, who are really the standard bearer of libertarianism in the government right now, you were coming around on Donald Trump. I think as it relates partly to his foreign policy, and that was one of the things that got me there. So let me start with a quote from the Daily Wire just to catch everybody up, and then we'll get your take on what's going on in Syria. On November 30th, Islamic terrorist groups, including Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, launched a rapid offensive capturing Aleppo, Syria's second largest city. By December 5th, these forces had also taken control of Hama.
Hold on. Wait. I'm so confused right now. This is December 10th. I thought the Tenet media stuff is already broken and the Russian money is dried up. Why is he still doing propaganda for Russia? Can somebody explain this?
The country's fourth largest city. The swift territorial losses prompted the Assad regime to seek support from allies. Iran pledged assistance to the Syrian government following the fall of Aleppo. By December 7th, rebel forces had entered Damascus, leading to the collapse of the Assad regime. President Bashar al-Assad fled to Moscow, where he was granted asylum. President-elect Donald Trump responded to the downfall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime on Sunday, suggesting that Russia lost a key ally in the Middle East because of its war in Ukraine. Russia and Iran are in a weakened state right now, one because of Ukraine and a bad economy, the other because of Israel and its fighting success, he continued. Likewise, Ukraine President Zelensky and Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They have ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians. Would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They have ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians. There should be an immediate ceasefire and negotiations should begin. Too many lives are being so needlessly wasted, too many families destroyed, and if it keeps going, it can turn into something much bigger and far worse. I know Vladimir Zelensky well. This is the time to act. China can help it, and if it keeps an immediate deal and stop the success, he continued. Likewise, Ukraine President Zelensky and and if it keeps going, it can turn into something much bigger and far worse. I know Vladimir Zelensky well. This is the time to act. China can help. The world is waiting, Trump said. Syria is a mess, but it is our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it, Trump said in a post on X. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. And you know what? We'll just come back to you right here. I don't need to read anymore. Senator, I get involved. And you know what? We'll just come back to you right here. I don't need to read anymore. Senator, I sense you agree with the sentiment there that we are in way too deep in too many of these conflicts. We have no idea where the money is going all over the place. And that as it pertains to Syria particularly, we don't.
way too deep in too many of these conflicts. I'm sorry, which ones? Which conflict is America deep into right now besides our assistance to Ukraine? What? I know we still send Israel packages. I guess those two. How many? What is too many of those conflicts? What? How many wars do you think is going on right now? What?
We don't even know who the good guys are to some extent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with President Trump more. I think that this is not our fight. I think it's a crazy notion to even have 900 U.S. troops there. We have them scattered in a half dozen locations. There's barely more than 100 soldiers in one location. I think they're more of a target than they are deterrents. I think they're a tripwire. I think they could get us more heavily involved in a very messy situation where it's unclear who the good guys are. The people who've taken over the government were recently called al-Nusra, and before that they were called al-Qaeda. So these were people who...
I can't watch any more of this. If you don't know anything about foreign policy, just don't talk about foreign policy. I mean, you're a libertarian, so you already don't know anything about foreign policy. But like, just like if you think that the entirety of, like in Syria, like, oh, all of those people, they used to be al-Qaeda, and then all of those people used to be al-Nusra, and all of those people used to be, like that, bro, the Syrian civil war has never been that simple. I don't know if any of the conflict in the Middle East has ever been that simple, but okay. I'm good on this. All right.
There's all sorts of evidence of this type of nonsense.
Never happens to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, and if it did happen, to you, your accountant would be in a lot of shit, right? Like you'd be like, this can't happen again. Extra couple, yeah.
You're kidding.
My interview with Rand Paul will have the exact numbers on that. But there's all sorts of evidence of this type of nonsense.
Never happens to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No.
Like, how do they bring this up and nobody on this show knows? Like, what are we doing here, guys? I thought the whole point of podcasts, people always like, we want long form discussions, long form podcasts, was so that we don't do it's not supposed to be like, now we've gotten out of 30-second misinformation clips so that we can have 2-hour in-depth discussions, but now it's just 2 hours of misinformation. Like, nobody here can take a microsecond to just read what your editor is putting up on the screen. Like, you're not even reading the articles that are being shown to the audience.
My interview with Rand Paul will have the exact numbers on that. But there's all sorts of evidence of this type of nonsense.
Never happens to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, and if it did happen, to you, your accountant would be in a lot of shit, right? Like you'd be like, this can't happen again, and I probably have to fire you.
Did anybody like on the receiving end of that check be like, well, hold on a second, you actually said this amount? But
no, of course not. It wasn't found out till like a year later. I wish I could remember what the exact number was.
Do you think they detected that? And they were,
no,
no, because
it's same thing. It goes through so many filters, and layers, and like,
the person receiving it probably doesn't know how much is supposed to be sent. They're like, oh, the money's here. All right,
and that's a whole other.
Really? Like, think about this for 1 microsecond. They have no idea how much aid they think they're gonna get. They have no idea what's coming. They're just like, oh, well, let's wait and see what shows up, LOL. Oh, cool. Let me sign for this FedEx package. I thought it was going to be 480 HIMARS, but instead it's just 100 rounds of 5.56. Oh, no. Fuck me, I guess, LOL. I guess the American Santa Claus wasn't generous this season. Like, what?
Rabbit hole. I would prefer not to go down, but the point I would say broadly is that this.
Also, remember, rabbit hole and in the weeds is always code for, excuse me, I only do slogans. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Every single time somebody says, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole or get into the weeds, it's code for, I have no clue. I actually don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this.
They're like, oh, the money's here.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, keep in mind, they're still talking about this as though it was money and it wasn't an incorrect estimation on the supplies being sent, right?
That's a whole other rabbit hole that I would prefer not to go down. But the point I would say broadly is that this is exactly what the problem is. People that are engaged, that sort of care about these issues, they don't even really understand what's going on. And I think that when they peel back this stuff, we're going to see such
but you do, who didn't even know what this story was about. Okay.
a mess under there, and it will be able to be cleaned quickly. Did you see the video that Milei put out in Argentina, I think right before he got elected, where he's in front of the board and he has all the departments on the board, afuera, afuera, and he's ripping them up. And guess what? He's done it. And now their GDP is growing by something like
budget surplus.
They have a budget surplus. The GDP is, I think, at 8.4% growth. Like, and it's just because he was like, we will not do this anymore. It's just enough. And that's kind of where we're at.
But in fairness, I haven't heard like much from the
Argentina won. The economic condition of Argentina, again, the reason why I harp on the healthcare stuff and the whether or not insurance companies are evil or not, they're not, or any of these particular things, isn't to defend or simp for the companies or defend or simp for whatever system. It's just to make you understand that, like, if you don't know where a problem even is, you can't begin to even solve the problem. If you don't know what the problem is, right? Even if that guy, Milei or whatever, is doing good things for Argentina, I don't know because I haven't researched it in depth. I haven't researched it all, right? Even if that guy was doing good things for Argentina, the problems that Argentina has is not the same thing as the problems that the United States has. The United States was not dealing with thousands of percent of cumulative inflation. The United States was not. Why would we assume that what works for Argentina would work for the United States? Like, why would we even make that assumption?
And it's just because he was like, we will not do this anymore. It's just enough. And that's kind of where we're at.
But in fairness, I haven't heard like much from the constituents of Argentina in terms of like how this is affecting them. I know for Nayib Bukele, the guy from El Salvador, like that's actually treating people in El Salvador incredibly well. My roommate that I had back in college, he's El Salvadorian, and I actually texted him because I see all this stuff on Twitter, but you never know what's real and what's fake. And so I texted him like, hey, I know you're El Salvadorian. How is this actually affecting people? I don't want to go by what some random like white dude in Minnesota is saying about El Salvador. Like, I want to see from an actual constituent. And he said that he was actually able to go and visit his grandma for the first time in like a decade because it's finally safe enough to go and see her.
So
just to be clear, okay, just as a quick thing, people from other countries, okay, we all come from, believe it or not, roughly the same genetic stock, roughly the same biological systems. We have about the same brains. People in other countries can be just as retarded as people from the United States, okay? A guy could spend his entire life living in London or Paris or Madrid and not be able to tell you a single fucking thing about what life is like in Scotland, in rural England, or in I don't know, in southern fucking France, or in some random fucking city in Spain. Europeans or people in South America might live in a city. They might not even be able to tell you everything about that city. So just because you have a friend from a country doesn't mean that they can tell you everything going on with that country. You're selecting for very specific people who just live, like, unless this person is like intentionally well-traveled or does like some kind of like endeavor or makes an endeavor to understand everything about a particular place, there's no guarantee that this person will give you any insight on fucking anything, okay? Just to be ultra clear, all right?
I've been to El Salvador a couple times before Bukele because my brother-in-law was working with an organization that was helping poor people get shoes, sidebar. But
I think he's talking about all the gang arrests that El Salvador has been doing lately. Yeah, sure, but like think about that. Like you ask a guy, like I have a friend who lives in, I've got a friend who lives in, I don't remember where these cities are. Hold on, let me just make sure I'm not going to say something. Okay, yeah, Bucharest, Romania. I have a friend who lives in Bucharest. So I messaged him and he said that crime around Romania is doing great, right? Okay, well, yeah, that sounds real. Sure, I believe that. But like now imagine you go to the United States and it's like, oh, I have a friend who lives in, I've got a friend who lives in West Hollywood. And I texted him and he said, oh, crime in California is actually fine. They don't have issues with homeless people in California anymore. Oh, cool. Like you would know in the US, you're like, hold on, that's just one state. Even in just one city, right? You go, wait. Well, hold on. He doesn't even live in the area where these things are happening. Why would you ever text a friend who lives in the wealthiest area code of this city and ask him what you wouldn't know that. But meanwhile, Americans will be like, oh yeah, I've got this friend who lives in Argentina and he says that South America is doing great. So I think they're doing fine. It's like, why would you assume he would know the conditions of everything down there? What?
But he had to live in or Bukele because my brother-in-law was working with an organization that was helping poor people get shoes, sidebar. But he had to live in an incredibly protected, armed guard, barbed wire community that was basically for Americans that were trying to just help these communities. And when we went, I mean, you could not walk outside. You basically knew if you walked outside, first off, you literally couldn't because they had giant metal gates and armed guards there. But that they made it very clear, if you walk out of this thing, if you figure out how to get out of here without us, you will likely be killed or at least have all your stuff stolen. And it's not like that anymore. I mean, they had, you've seen the videos of him just wrangling these gangs. There were gang members basically took over the country. The gangs were running the country.
I'm adding this to my fucking bullshit research. I need to look this bullshit up because everybody talks about this El Salvador gangs bullshit. I don't know how true any of this is.
They were literally just going into houses and saying, this is our house now. There's nobody to call. The police basically didn't exist. So Bukele has done something absolutely incredible. And I think it was this morning I saw, he put up a screenshot of how much of El Salvador's cash is now in Bitcoin. Did you see that? It's like this guy's really revolutionizing his country. It's incredible.
I mean, he could have been wrong. In fairness, he could have been drastically right. And then, but he also tweeted, which I thought was even dangerous because I would never say something like that. And nor would I say what he said, which was, I told you so.
Right.
Did you see that tweet that he did? Like once Bitcoin was skyrocketing, he was like, I told you so.
I think he's done a few of those.
But now he's even doubling down off of that first audacious move. And now people are going to have more artillery if it ever goes down to like, just attack him with.
Right. There's absolutely a risk there because, I mean, Bitcoin happens to be doing quite well right now, but clearly has had its ups and downs. And you just don't know. Like, what does that really mean? Okay, so you have that in Bitcoin. That's great. And El Salvador has that. But what does it really, really mean for the people? It's still a little unclear to me at some point. It's a stored wealth, you're not spending it. So there's something to be said about what he's doing there. But I would say the fact that he's thinking about the world differently, that if he gave a speech at CPAC about a year ago where he basically said, look, we were the most violent country in the Western Hemisphere out of developed nations. We were the most violent and we're basically the safest. So I can't verify if it's absolutely the safest and by what metric they mark that at, but that he's been able to change it quickly, that clearly Milei has been able to change it quickly. Again, I think goes to how Trump will be able to do this fairly quickly.
Although really quick, before we go into that, if you run your own business, you understand how difficult it can be to manage your own finances. Cards, receipts, and payments pile up fast. But thankfully, with today's sponsor, Ramp, it doesn't have to be that way.
So guys, Ramp is the corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and put money back in your pocket. With Ramp, spend policies are built into the card to control spending before it even happens. It automatically collects and categorizes receipts, so you'll never have to chase them down ever again. Plus, Ramp enforces compliance by flagging violations and locking cards for non-compliance.
Ramp also helps streamline your entire financial workflow. Expense reporting, reimbursements, and vendor payments all in one place. And businesses save an average of 5% in their first year by using Ramp. Ramp. Plus, now you could get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/ICH with a link down below in the description. Again, that's ramp.com/ICH with a link in the description.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC, terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much to Ramp for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast.
What are your thoughts on Bitcoin? And doing maybe like a strategic reserve?
Well, I've got some Bitcoin, and I've never paid for any Bitcoin because when I first started doing my show, somebody, a lot of libertarians like me because I'm basically anti-regulation and not big on government. And people said, put up a QR code, which I wasn't even sure what that was at the time, on my website. And I just put it there, and people started giving me Bitcoin. So I have a nice amount of Bitcoin, which I'm very excited about, particularly in the last week or so. I think that should we have some sort of reserve? You mean the government should have some sort of reserve? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we're in such an absolute massive technological shift right now. Like the world, I grew up in a world that I remember I got my first cell phone. It was right before 9/11. I lived in New York City in 9/11. I had a little candy bar, black and white. All you could do was play Snake on it, and
game.
Yeah, that was it. That was basically it. Like, think how fundamentally different the world is from that. That was 23 years ago, basically. The world is changing so fast. Everything that's happening with AI, industries are disappearing. Everything that's happening now with robotics, and that they're, even now, it's like Amazon.
Like, these people switch gears so fast, but they don't have a comprehensive narrative for the United States. They just have a bunch of disconnected, discrete slogans, right? Like, think about what he's saying right now. Like, now we're going to go into the tech bro thing, okay? So we're going to eject everything we just thought in our brain, and now we're going to talk about how crazy AI is and how crazy crypto is and how crazy technology is and how crazy software development is, right? Okay, wait a second, but what did you want to do for the U.S. economy? Didn't you want to tariff the fuck out of everything and bring back coal mining? Like, if everything you're saying is true, shouldn't we be making even deeper investments into education? Shouldn't we be making even deeper investments into the horrible states that you hit, like California, that are kind of the leads of our, our Silicon Valley, our tech entrepreneurs, our startups, and our investments into these kinds of businesses? Like notice how the world is completely changing based on what the subject matter is,
Happening with AI. Fundamentally different the world is from that. That was 23 years ago, basically. The world is changing so fast. Everything that's happening with AI, industries are disappearing.
Industries are disappearing. Okay, yeah, they are. But why is it that some industries can't disappear? Like base level manufacturing or base level mining or low level, like those industries can't disappear. Those have to be tariffed, like crazy from other countries so that they're protected forever. Like what?
Everything that's happening now with robotics, and that they're, even now, it's like Amazon at their factories is doing so much automation and so much with robots and everything else, but the guy who drops the package off at your house is still a man. But that's not really necessary, right? We can do it with drones. They'll do it with robots. Elon just, Optimus and all this stuff. So it's like there's so much changing right now that I think our currency needs to probably change along with it. So I would tell anybody, like, you should get some Bitcoin at least. I'm definitely not an expert in it.
Why don't you buy more? It seems like that stands for everything that you do.
Well, first off, why aren't
This is weird undermine. I think this is another Russian talking point he probably got from his contact at the Kremlin, trying to undermine the U.S. dollar. I don't know what the fuck that. Okay.
I buy more again? I never bought any in the first place.
So why not buy
I like the idea that I just have this thing on the ledger that I've never bought. Like, there's something fun about the idea. Like, literally.
Also, it hurt maybe to buy it since you were gifted.
I don't even think he knows what crypto is. I'm going to be super honest here. I think that if you were to ask Dave Rubin, could you just explain what you think a blockchain is? Like, who maintains the blockchain? I don't think Dave Rubin would be able to explain that. I don't think he would have any idea.
Right. So now it's like it's $100,000 basically as we sit here right now, right? It's at 95 or something.
I had
like
the counter before you got here. I was just watching it.
What is it?
It was 99.3.
It could hit 100 today. Is it the first day it's ever been 99?
Yeah, today.
Then that's probably people are excited to push it to 100.
So why wouldn't I buy more? I mean, I'll be completely transparent with you. I just had a
99.5.
So we're.
I'll be completely transparent with you. I just lost a major contract because I made $5 million last year doing Russian propaganda, and so my finances are a little bit up in the air at the moment because I don't know if I'm going to get another contract from my friends over in Moscow. Explain the blockchain. Basically, Microsoft and Windows 11 have all come together to online record all the transactions that people have so that everybody can remember them.
Probably people are excited to push it to 100.
So why wouldn't I buy more? I mean, I'll be completely transparent with you. I just had a
99.5.
So we're right there.
The peak,
it's going to push through, and as soon as it breaks 100, then there's more news, more articles, and it's going to push it.
99.740 was
prediction right there.
Now, I will say, though, because I did watch this in 2017 when it hit 20.
Yeah.
And everyone, I was watching it on TV, watching it hit 20 for like a second, and then boom, everyone started selling.
Yeah.
And it just plummeted. And then it was a slow descent from 20 down to like 3,500.
Right.
So the same could happen, theoretically. It hits 100, everyone's like, all right, we're good. Sell.
My sense is it's going to go down again, maybe not all the way down to 20, but like that's part of what's going to happen with this thing over time. I would say why I don't buy more is I just had a meeting with my financial people this week, and we were discussing what we have in Bitcoin versus everything else, and they actually felt that my ratio was exactly right. So,
based on what?
Based on how they view people should be diversified in various things.
Okay, BlackRock said
I like how this is a finance podcast. First of all, no financial advisor. I promise you. I swear, I promise you, anytime you've ever talked to a real certified financial advisor and you bring up Bitcoin, their eyes are rolling so fucking hard on the other end of that phone, like, oh, fuck me. And then they probably have like their managers or bosses or whatever the fuck are like, listen, if their portfolio is some size, then they can have 5% of jerk off money. And if they want to fucking buy crypto and that's what we need to keep a customer, then do that shit or whatever. Like no actual financial advisor is recommending you fucking Bitcoin. There's fucking no shot. I don't believe this for a microsecond.
Seeing what we have. I would say why I don't buy more.
Also, again, this is a finance show. Ask him for a specific. What do you mean? What percentage of your total holdings of your portfolio is in cryptocurrency? I want to know. I'm curious. I actually am curious. That's a good finance question for a finance podcast. Ask him.
Or I just had a meeting with my financial people this week, and we were discussing what we have in Bitcoin versus everything else, and they actually felt that my ratio was exactly right. So,
like, what is the ratio? What is the ratio?
You know,
based on what?
Based on how they view people should be diversified in various things.
Okay, BlackRock said the optimal allocation for Bitcoin, and they said this in 2022 is 85%.
Where did this come from? BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has recently made waves after its groundbreaking recommendation for an 85% Bitcoin allocation in investment portfolios was recently shared and spread across Twitter and other social media. Although this research wasn't actually published in April 2022, it was only widely noticed recently. This move signifies a significant shift in the traditional financial world's perception of Web3, particularly Bitcoin. Okay, what are we citing here? 2.3, the effect of skewness in practice. We perform the following asset allocation exercise. Suppose we start with a 60-40 equity bond portfolio, assuming the equity and bond returns are log normal. Okay, 60-40 equity bond portfolio. What does this mean? 60% in equities and 40% in bonds? I don't even know what the asset class of equities means. But okay, 60-40, okay, and then log normal. I'm guessing that's a way to track returns to make sure that they're within some bounds or whatever. Oh, equities are just stocks? Okay. Fitted to the moments reported in data in Exhibit 1, we compute the power utility risk aversion coefficient to yield that 60-40 allocation. In this case, a risk aversion of y equals 1.5 corresponds to 60-40. Then we hold the risk aversion fixed and estimate the optimal weight of Bitcoin H sub BTC. I don't know what the H stands for here. You hold the risk aversion fixed and estimate the optimal weight of Bitcoin. I guess how weighted your portfolio should be with Bitcoin. Assuming that the equity and bond weights are held in the same pro rata 60-40 allocation, that is, the equity and bond weights are set to be 1 minus this bullshit, 1 minus this bullshit, okay. Respectively, we use the mixture of normals distributions, equation 1 and Exhibit 3 for Bitcoin returns that captures large positive skewness. Exhibit 4 presents the results, starting with a 60-40 equity bond portfolio, which is produced with a risk aversion of y equals 1.5. The optimal Bitcoin allocation is a large 84.9%. The remainder of the portfolio, 15.1%, is split 60-40 between equities and bonds. Although Bitcoin has an extremely large volatility of 1.322, see Exhibit 1, the pronounced positive skewness leads to large allocations and dominates in the utility function, see equation 9. The certainty equivalent compensation required to not invest in Bitcoin is close to 200%. In Exhibit 4, starting at a 20/80 stock bond portfolio leads to a 12.5% Bitcoin allocation, and a risk-tolerant investor with an 80/20 stock bond portfolio desires a levered position in Bitcoin of 106.6%. I'm so curious what this paper is from. This is page 10 of, what I'm curious about is I'm curious if this is like demonstrating the faultiness of some types of like risk aversion formulas because, well, look, if we follow this formula, like I'm so curious what this paper is from. Actually, we can find this. 2.3, or I'll just look for effect of skewness in practice. Effect of skewness in practice. What's this? Okay. Abstract. Bitcoin returns exhibit. Hold on, let me make sure this is the right thing. In theory and in practice. Okay. Bitcoin returns exhibit pronounced positive skewness. Hold on, I need to see what this means. Skewness in finance. What does that mean? Skewness is the degree of asymmetry observed in a probability distribution. What is a probability distribution? What do we mean when we say this? A probability distribution is a statistical function that describes all the possible values and likelihoods that a random variable can take within a given range. Oh, okay. So you're clustering probabilities around a certain value, and then the distribution is how they cluster around that value. And then does it skew, like, I'm guessing right is good, left is bad, right or left? Okay. Okay. The range will be bounded between the minimum and maximum possible values. However, where the possible value is likely to be plotted on the probability distribution depends on several factors. These factors include the distribution's mean, which is the average, the standard deviation, the skewness, and the kurtosis. So mean is going to be the average of all the points. The standard deviations is going to mean like the distributions, like how quickly does it rise and fall, right? Versus like 1 or 2 standard deviations off the data. Skewness, I guess, is, well, we're getting that. We'll go read for skewness. I don't know what kurtosis means either. It's a statistical measure used to describe a characteristic of a data set. When normally distributed data is plotted on a graph, it generally takes the form of a bell. That is called the bell curve. The plotted data that are furthest from the mean of the data usually form the tails of each side of the curve. Kurtosis indicates how much data resides in the tails. Okay. 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 When data points on a bell curve are not distributed symmetrically to the left and right sides of the median, the bell curve is skewed. Distributions can be positive and right skewed or negative and left skewed. A normal distribution exhibits 0 skewness. Gotcha. So like these two are left skewed and this is right skewed. Types of skews. Negative or left skewed refers to a longer or fatter tail on the left side of the distribution, while positive or right skewed refers to a longer or fatter tail on the right. These two skews show the direction or weight of the distribution. The 3 probability distributions below are right skewed to an increasing degree. Oh, all of these are right skewed. Okay. Because it only depends on what it's clustered around. And so there's more area under the curve to the right of the peaks of all of these. Is that the only thing that matters? In a left skewed distribution, the mean of negatively skewed data will be less than the median. The mean will be less than the median. Oh, okay, because the middle point, and then if you average all this, it'll be less than that. Okay, a right skewed or positive distribution means its tail is more pronounced on the right side than on the left. Since the distribution is positive, the assumption is that its value is positive. As such, most of the values end up left of the mean. Most of the values end up left of the mean. Since the distribution is positive, that means that the most extreme values on the right side. Wait, no, hold on, wait, I misunderstood this. The mean of positively skewed data will be greater than the median. In a left skewed distribution, the mean of negatively skewed data will be less than the median. Wait, yes, never mind. Wait, we were right. Okay. Okay, negative or less skewed means, okay. 2 measures of measuring skewness. Okay, we don't care about this. What does skewness tell investors? Investors note skewness when judging a return distribution because it, like kurtosis, considers the extremes of the data set rather than focusing solely on the average. Short and medium-term investors look at extremes because they are less likely to hold position long enough to be confident that the average will work out. Investors commonly use standard deviation to predict future returns, but the standard deviation assumes a normal distribution. As few returns distributions appear normal, skewness is a better measure to base performance predictions. Skewness risk is the increased risk of turning up a data point of high skewness in a skewed distribution. Many financial models that attempt to predict the future skewness of an asset assume it's a normal distribution. If the data are skewed, the model will always underestimate skewness risk in its predictions. The more skewed the data, the less accurate this financial model will be. Okay. The broad stock market is often considered to have a negatively skewed distribution. The notion that the market often returns a small positive return and a large negative loss. However, studies have shown that the equity of an individual may tend to be left skewed, or an individual firm may tend to be left skewed. A common example of skewness is displayed in the distribution of household income, within the United States. Skewness reflects what causes it. Skewness reflects a data set in which activity is heavily condensed in one range and less condensed in another. Imagine scores being measured at an Olympic long jump contest. Many jumpers will likely land large distances, while a smaller amount will land short distances. This often creates a right skewed distribution. Therefore, the relationship with the data points and how often they occur causes skewness. Okay, all right, okay. Sorry, all right. Okay, sorry, coming back to this. Bitcoin returns exhibit pronounced positive skewness with a third central moment of approximately 150% per year. Fuck. Okay, what is a moment in data? Moment. Investopedia. Please give me. Central moment. I just did that twice. In probability theory and statistics, a central moment is a moment. In mathematics, the moment of a function are certain quantitative measures related to the shape of the function's graph. If the function represents mass density, then the 0th moment is the total mass. The first moment, normalized by total mass, is the center of mass, and the second moment is the moment of inertia. Okay. Okay. Okay, coming back to this. Okay. Central moment is a moment of a probability distribution of a random variable about the random variable's mean. That is, it is the expected value of a specified integer power of the deviation of a random variable from the mean. A central moment is a moment of a probability distribution of a random variable about the random variable's mean. That is, it is the expected value of a specified integer power of the deviation of the random variable of a specified integer power of the deviation of the random variable from the mean. Mean. It is the expected value. Well, somebody break this down for me more. The various moments form one set of values by which the properties of a probability distribution can be usefully characterized. Central moments are used in preference to ordinary moments, computed in terms of deviations from the mean instead of from 0, because the higher order central moments relate only to the spread and shape of the distribution rather than also to its location. The first moment is the mean. The second moment is variance. Third moment is skewness. Expected value is like, on average, I expect that event to give me X result. Sure. Okay, whatever. All right, we're close enough. Got a jumble in our brains here. Okay, so Bitcoin returns exhibit pronounced positive skewness with a third central moment of approximately 150% per year. So this statement is just saying that Bitcoin investments are positively skewed, and on average, they've returned 150% per year. With skewness meaning if we were to draw the expected whatever returns, it's going to be fatter on the right side of the middle than the left side.
No?
Wait, 2 people in chat said no. Positive skewness with a third central moment of approximately 150% per year. Wait. Imagine your toy cars are spread out on the floor. The mean is like finding the middle spot where they usually are. Central moments tell you how spread out your cars are from that middle. Okay. Okay. They are well characterized by a mixture of normals, distribution with one normal regime and a small probability of a bliss regime where the price appreciation is more than 100 times at the annual horizon. The large right tail skew induces investors who prefer positive skewness to add significant Bitcoin holdings to equity bond portfolios. Even when Bitcoin is forecasted to lose half its value in the normal regime, investors with power utility optimally add 3% allocations to Bitcoin when the probability of the bliss regime is around 1%. Cumulative prospect theory investors are even more sensitive to positive skewness. They hold Bitcoin allocations of about 3% when the probability of the bliss regime is 0.0006, and the mean of Bitcoin in the normal regime corresponds to a loss of 90%. Okay, let me see if okay. Where are my stats, guys? It sounds like I'm explaining this in much simpler terms. So I either don't understand it or this works. It sounds like what they're saying is that if they were to graph like the risk of this, they're saying that if the risk of Bitcoin looks like, if the risk of Bitcoin were to look like this, when they talk about a second regime, are they talking about like, I didn't mean to do that. Fuck! I suck at drawing these fucking curves. Are they talking about like a thing that looks like this? Is this like what they're describing? So like the vast majority of your points might, like 90% of the time, you might be like over here where you're like losing, but because the gains potentially are so great that there could be like a really low percentage return over here, but the weighted expected value is going to make it positive to induce investment? Or no, they're saying that the right side of the bell is just really, really, really long. What does second regime mean? Oh, so they're saying what it looks like this? I keep pushing the right fucking... The tail doesn't need to have a spike. It just extends further to the right. What does bliss regime mean? Jesus. Okay, fuck you guys. Okay, I'm going with my thing. Fuck you. Okay, key findings. The distribution of Bitcoin returns from 2010 to 2021 is characterized by large volatility and an extremely large third central moment of 1.44 compared to third central moments of negative 0.0043 and 0.0001 for equities and bonds, respectively. The very positively skewed returns are well captured by a mixture of normals distribution. The mean is relatively low in the regime that occurs most of the time, while the mean is very large in the second bliss regime that occurs with small probability. Hold on. Okay, I'm so sorry. 1 second. You've spammed this question all fucking day. Regarding H-1B, how is it a fair market if you have a visa that is basically indentured servitude, that if H-1B leaves, the company that brought them over, they lose their visa, so you can abuse the hell out of them. And if there is clear racism and bias against U.S. citizens from employers, which has been proven in court numerous times, that is illegal as well. That is not free market. Why don't you care to get more knowledgeable about this topic? If you don't like the visa, then leave. What the fuck are you talking about? How is it indentured servitude? They're not stealing your fucking passport. If you come over and you find some situation you don't like, then leave. I don't think by and large this is like an issue in the United States. No, that Indians are coming over and they're experiencing these. It's not fucking Dubai. Okay, the very positively skewed returns are well captured by a mixture of normal distributions. The mean is relatively low in the regime that occurs most of the time, while the mean is very large in the second bliss regime that occurs with small probability. It is optimal to hold a small allocation to Bitcoin with utility functions that exhibit a preference for positive skewness, like constant relative risk aversion, or cumulative prospect theory preferences when there is a small probability of the bliss regime occurring. The allocations are very sensitive to changes in the probability of the bliss regime. Okay, so the key findings of this paper, sorry, we've gotten really into the weeds on reading shit, sorry, is they say that there is, it is optimal to hold a small allocation to Bitcoin. But okay, let's just look real quick. This is probably too dense for me financially, but we'll. Okay, following Samuelson, 1970, citing an earlier paper, we can expand the expectation of utility function. U is a Taylor series around the point. Absolute value of W, I guess, for average wealth is blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to the third moment here, first, second, third derivative, respectively, utility function, blah, 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 blah. Is the prudence parameter of Campbell equation 9 states that investors demand compensation for bearing variance risk through the relative risk aversion coefficient Y and are willing to pay to bear positive skewness risk as represented through the third central moment. Put another way, agents dislike variance risk, but like positive exposure to third moment risks. both the risk aversion coefficient Y and the prudence coefficient N affect the trade-off of third moment risk of return. We emphasize it as the third central moment, not normalized skewness that divides by, okay, this has to do with the types of risk that investors are willing to accept. For example, the third central moment estimates for equities and bonds is negative 0.004 and 0.000 respectively. The third central moment, let's look at exhibit 1 real quick. It's an important exhibit, guys. Excuse me? What joke fucking paper is this that they don't label their exhibits? Am I missing it? Figures and tables. Exhibit 1. Fuck you. Okay. Okay, stocks, bitcoins, and bonds returned since 2010. Okay, that's what we got here. The reason why this analysis is retarded is that it takes a single asset that went up in the past 10 years and assumes it will behave similarly in the next 10 years. You can just take this entire analysis process, find a stock that boomed in the past decade like NVIDIA, and come to the same conclusion that your portfolio should be 85% NVIDIA. Okay, I'm not going to speak for all of academia and all of research, but oftentimes when you see a thing that looks fucking retarded, that's not, the thing itself is not usually retarded. What's retarded is how it's being cited. For instance, when these guys are saying, there was a paper that said that you should hold...
in various things.
Okay, BlackRock said the optimal allocation for Bitcoin, and they said this in 2022, is 85%.
That's retarded. That's probably not what this paper is saying. My guess is going to be, and this is too much for me. Like, this is past my area of comfort in saying I can even truly comprehend what this paper is saying. But it sounds like this paper is just going through different types of risk assessments that you can use, and then it's analyzing Bitcoin through different formulas. And I'm sure the author of the paper understands the limitations of these formulas and understands the specific point in time. And it's just talking about, like, well, if you if you risk analyze this way, like, you could argue these crazy things. Like, look at this. When he said in the paper, and we even saw this in the quote, right? Exhibit 4 presents the results starting with a 60-40 equity bond portfolio, which is produced with a risk aversion of Y equals 1.5. The optimal Bitcoin allocation is a large 84.9%! Exclamation mark! He knows that that's a crazy finding, right? That's the whole point of, right? I'm guessing the person authoring this paper knows this. This person is not saying that, that this is necessarily a good investment. It's just ripping one paragraph out of this paper and trying to, yeah. Okay, sorry, hold on. This represents the optimal Bitcoin weight in a 3-asset portfolio of Bitcoin equities and bonds with a starting equity position, and a 2-asset portfolio containing only equities and bonds with a power utility. Data generated process equity bonds, log normal. Then we add Bitcoin to equities and bonds, where Bitcoin follows a mixture of normal. Okay. And then this is the optimal Bitcoin weight. So how much Bitcoin you should have as a percentage in your portfolio. Do they calculate portfolios of over 100%? Is it like normal that you would do that? Or is it saying something that I'm not understanding? Is this like leveraging a portfolio or something? But okay. Varying the probability of bliss, and this is going to be performed a revealed preference exercise to back out an investor's beliefs on the probability of the bliss regime for small allocations to BTC, Bitcoin. We deliberately set the mean of Bitcoin in the normal regime corresponding to losing half of an investor's wealth, while all other parameters and mixtures of normal result, we send an equity bond. Okay. Also, the source BlackRock. This is just grabbing what, like pricing and asset allocation percentages from BlackRock? Is this even a BlackRock paper, or is this published by like a BlackRock like academic section, or is this just a guy who's just sourcing things from how BlackRock publishes how they weight assets or whatever? Like, is this an employee of BlackRock, or click on the authors? Yeah, okay, I'll check it out. Hold on. Bitcoin log returns exhibit an extremely large third central moment of 144% of the annual horizon. Several orders of magnitude larger than the third central moments of stocks and bonds, which are lower, much lower. So the mixture of normal situation, there's one normal regime, the other is a bullish regime that is extremely high mean, corresponding to price appreciation measured in hundreds of percent with a relatively smaller volatility. Bullish regime occurs with small probabilities, large positive skewness captured by the infrequent. Behavioral investors with cumulative prospect theory utility are even more sensitive to the large positive skew because they overweight the Bliss regime compared to its objective probability. With CPT, an investor need only believe the Bliss regime will occur with probabilities around 0.0005 to hold optimal Bitcoin allocations of approximately 3%. There's another name for this also. I don't want to say like in behavioral economics or something else, but there's another name for this where like you can present somebody like a good bet that the person should probably never take, right? So, for instance, if I, let's say that a person has $10,000, right? And I say, okay, well, let's gamble your $10,000, okay? However, we're gonna gamble. I'm gonna do a 99-to-1 gamble where if you win the gamble, I'm gonna give you $1 million. And if you lose, I take your money, right? Well, in this case, like technically, or we'll even say like 1.2 million or whatever, right? Like, well, okay, well, technically your expected value from the coin flip or well, the 99-to-1 trade or whatever, is technically it's positive. You have a positive expected value. You should take this bet every time, mathematically speaking. However, like I don't know how you describe this in stats or econ or behavioral, I don't know what you use to describe this, but an ordinary person wouldn't do this because the chances of this outcome are so low that even if statistically speaking it's a good bet, you wouldn't risk this, if that makes any sense. Risk of ruin? Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's got to be some type of risk appetite where even if you have a Bliss regime or whatever, where the mean is so high, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to gamble so much of your portfolio, no matter how high it gets. But okay. An important caveat is that we have taken only Bitcoin returns and not examined the very large cross-section of cryptos. This deserves separate attention because skewness is not a coherent measure of risk as defined by this. So the third central moment. There are style factor strategies that can generate alpha in the cross-section of cryptos documented by Louis Savinsky and Wu and Louis, I don't know, but it's Liang and I can't pronounce these fucking names, such as a market crypto factor, size, and momentum, making an allocation to crypto more attractive. On the other hand, given the relatively short histories of crypto returns, survivorship bias may not be accurately measured. It might be that the true probability of a Bliss regime is lower than the empirical estimates we find, or lower than the hypothetical comparative statics exercises we examine. Indeed, the large sensitivities of investors' holdings with preferences with positive skewness means that small downward revisions on the probability of attaining Bliss in Bitcoin returns can result in large decreases in optimal holdings of Bitcoin assets. So they even acknowledge in the conclusion that, like, obviously, yeah. The views expressed here are those of the authors alone and not of BlackRock Inc. We thank Alex Brazier, Ying Chan, Alex Eldemir, Emily Hazley, Ked Hogan, and Robbie Michnick for helpful comments. Jesus. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Jesus. What's the deal with this? And I saw this pop up. This is circulating the interwebs even though the work and report are data from early 2022, apparently BlackRock published research titled Asset Allocation with Crypto, Application of Preferences for Positive Skewness. Are they for real? Wouldn't this type of stance from a company such as this be deemed very irresponsible? Jesus Christ. It is a long paper, and maybe I am missing something, but at one point in the paper, they literally state that optimal allocation is 15% stocks and bonds on a 60-40 split, and then 85% Bitcoin. Jesus. Okay. I think sometimes when you either don't have things to write papers on, or if you're just like doing interesting research, like sometimes it's interesting to just run. Like, I imagine it would be like a new asset class, or in psychology, maybe like a new medication, like, oh, like, or here's like a thing, and we've got like all these historic formulas down, things. Let's run this through and then see, and then like we can write a paper about it. We have interesting findings, which it sounds like is basically what's being done here. And they say as much at the end that like these aren't like, obviously all of this is incredibly sensitive to change based on just small variances in predictive stuff, like it might be true that the probability of a bliss regime, meaning the likelihood of like that really positive outcome, right, is lower than the empirical estimates we find, or lower than in the hypothetical comparative statics exercises we examine. Indeed, the large sensitivities, sensitivity meaning a really large sensitivity means a small change in this variable will produce a huge magnitude, a huge change in another one, right? The large sensitivities of investors' holdings with preferences with positive skewness means that a small downward revision in the probability of attaining bliss in Bitcoin returns can result in large decreases in optimal holdings of Bitcoin assets. This is just an interesting paper that explores, that explores, I guess, like kind of the meme of, I don't even say meme, but like analyzing, I guess, like Bitcoin over the past 12 years using different risk models. That's all this is. Okay, Jesus, that took so long. Holy fuck. And it sounds like part of the motivation in writing this paper is it sounds like they were saying that not a lot of papers have actually been written examining Bitcoin. And it sounds like that's part of the reason why they wanted to write this paper. There is an exploding literature on crypto, and we can cite just a few papers on several related topics that we failed to capture in our model. We consider only the role of Bitcoin as a direct investable asset. This ignores there is a much smaller but rapidly growing literature on asset allocation with Bitcoin on characterizing the returns of Bitcoin or crypto, showing, among other things, they are lowly correlated to traditional assets. Among the many recent studies along these lines, these papers generally work in means variance matters do not explicitly consider the effect of skewness for optimal portfolio choice. So they decide to analyze skewness in this paper. That's all this is. Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry. What a sidetrack. BlackRock. Okay, so who is this retard? Joe Roberts, investing for 20 plus years. BlackRock's rash. So this is not BlackRock. Anybody saying this should just be criminally charged for being either criminally retarded or just lying. This is not a BlackRock recommendation or a BlackRock rationale or whatever. BlackRock's new report, and it's not a report by BlackRock either. That's also wrong. But I don't know if this guy's ever read a single report in his life or a single academic paper in his life or a tweet or anything, but okay. BlackRock's new report highlights the firm's strong belief in incorporating Bitcoin into portfolios. Remember, at the end, they literally say in this thing, they literally say at the end of this article, not that it matters, I guess, same thing for me, hedging doesn't matter. The views expressed here are those of the authors alone and not of BlackRock. Not of BlackRock, but okay. The report suggests not only should institutional investors consider Bitcoin, but retail investors have also shown a growing interest, reaching an all-time high. The shift in sentiment from large banking institutions and funds, which were once critical of Bitcoin, underscores the cryptocurrency's growing acceptance and potential for mainstream adoption. BlackRock analyzed Bitcoin's performance as an asset from July 2010 to December 2021. Their findings were staggering. For a 60-40 portfolio, the optimal allocation for Bitcoin stood at a whopping 84.9%. Okay, so he doesn't even know what the fuck this paper was about. This paper, it sounds like this paper, from the very little I understand of this, okay, it sounds like what this paper was about was running Bitcoin through different risk assessment models and then finding out what would the appropriate allocation of Bitcoin be, assuming some things to be true, and then like what would we expect to see a portfolio done if the investors were like aware of all these things. That's what the paper was exploring, basically. Not making a recommendation or doing like a huge analysis of the performance of Bitcoin versus other assets or whatever, just like BlackRock's recommendation, this is again a lie, draws parallels to, I wish people should sue people more for shit like this, draws parallels to the introduction of the first gold ETF in 2004. Following its introduction, the gold price surged 5-fold. This growth was partly attributed to BlackRock's global financial advisors advocating for a 5% gold allocation in every portfolio. If history is any indicator, do they even do that? Is that true? If all investors followed BlackRock's recommendation, Bitcoin's value could surpass the total value of all equities, real estate, and bonds combined. With the total global wealth estimated at around $800 trillion, Bitcoin's value could reach an astronomical figure of $190 million per coin. Gotcha. Jesus. Okay. Okay. What a horrible... Okay. So that was 30 minutes to understand how fucking crazy that statement was. I wonder what they say afterwards. And before they say, oh, that wasn't actually... Then they correct for all of it, and I just wasted my time doing this.
Exactly right. So, you know...
Based on what?
Based on how they view people should be diversified in various things.
Okay, BlackRock said the optimal allocation for Bitcoin, and they said this in 2022 is 85%.
BlackRock said that your Bitcoin allocation should be 85% of your assets?
Yes.
For the like the retail investor?
As the ideal portfolio should be 85%. This was in 2022.
How much Bitcoin does BlackRock have?
Yeah,
could be quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
if it's 85% of their portfolio,
they don't even cite the actual paper. They're citing Morgan Creek Digital, Alternative Thinking About Investments. Morgan Creek Digital analyzes BlackRock's study that suggested an 85% Bitcoin allocation. And they have the same paragraph here. Is this even a real thing? Morgan Creek Digital, 85%. It's so funny, too, because if you really wanted to... if you really wanted to meme out, wasn't there a second model that they used that estimated that you actually should have like 114% of your of your portfolio in Bitcoin? Wait, hold on. I don't remember how they phrase this exactly. I know this graph goes past the weight of Bitcoin here, but thanks here, I literally can't trust anything I see online. LeMayo, it'd be fun just to go back to believing random shit, blissfully ignorant. Yeah, but the, it's just like, why can't we do any, Control F114? I don't remember if it was 114. I don't know if it was exactly. Oh, no, that was a large volatility of 114% per year. I don't remember if they made this statement explicitly in the paper or not. Okay, maybe I just read that in the graph and they didn't actually explicitly say it, but okay. I would kill myself. Imagine doing all this work to write these papers and then fucking dipshits quote you like this. Welcome to Morgan Creek's Digital Asset Update. It is comprised of a thought piece from our team. We hope you find this content interesting. Morgan Creek Digital analyzes BlackRock's study that suggested an 85% Bitcoin allocation. As with many sensational headlines, though, this suggestion and excerpt were taken out of context. The 85% allocation was assuming a certain portfolio construction. So these, okay, wait. So this sounds like these guys are real finance people. Wait, so he's posting a link to the thing that's saying that he's misquoting it. This suggestion and excerpt were taken out of context. Was it intentional that they cut off the bottom of this, or was this just all they could fit on the page? The 85% allocation was assuming a certain portfolio construction, risk aversion factor, and model approach, none of which BlackRock suggested were the optimal assumptions or concluded approach to use. In the following sentences of the same paragraph, allocations of 12.5% and 106.6% levered are the resulting outcomes under different conditions. BlackRock's paper, it wasn't a paper by BlackRock. BlackRock's paper was not meant to give a point suggestion for asset allocations, but it instead aimed to provide different models used in forming an asset allocation strategy and the spectrum of assumptions and outcomes from these models. One of these approaches, the cumulative prospect theory, yields a similar conclusion as Morgan Creek's digital asset allocation research. Okay, but at least they apparently went through the paper. And it sounds like these guys are even like pro Bitcoin just by reading. I'm making huge assumptions just based on it. Like Morgan Creek Digital, alternative thinking about investments. And at least they like went through and, Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry. Fuck me, dude.
Percentage of assets?
Yeah. For the like the retail investor? As the ideal portfolio should be 85%. This was in 2022.
How much Bitcoin does BlackRock have?
Yeah, it should be quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
if it's 85% of their
rationale was that it was such an asymmetric.
Like, do you know what the assets under management of BlackRock is? Like, you think that BlackRock has trillions of dollars? What is the total market cap? Like the fact, like nobody here even has in their brain like any type of approximate understanding of any, like imagine if you were to say like, oh, the US federal government, like how much money do you think the US government spends on, how much money do you think the US government spends on trans rights? On trans rights, I don't know, if I had to guess, probably like $1 trillion. Like, how can you be that many orders of magnitude off on a guess there? $1 trillion, over half of our discretionary spending? Or like imagine like we need to make huge cuts to the federal budget. Really? What's like a huge cut you would make? Oh, like I would cut like $10 million from this shit. It's like 10 million. The discretionary spending is like 1.7 trillion. That's not a huge cut at all. Like to have nothing in your head about like the approximate like costs or values or numbers, like what is this? How could we like that? What an unbelievably crazy, stupid statement. Like, oh, maybe BlackRock has 80% of their holdings or assets under management might be. I don't even know what the difference.
BlackRock have.
Yeah,
it should be quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
if it's 85% of their portfolio,
rationale was that it was such an asymmetric risk to take for the amount of upside. Like the amount of upside you take for the amount of downside was so strong that it should be 85% of your portfolio to maintain the proper allocation of like risk versus reward.
Right, because
it sounds like he's either read an article about this that was wrong, or he read a little bit about that and just doesn't understand what's being said, or.
But at that time, Bitcoin was probably what?
It was in the high 20s, mid to high 20s.
I wonder what that
but
percent would be now.
Right.
That would be interesting to see.
Well, it would get kind of nutty because you'd only insanely wealthy people would be able to do that. So this is where I listen to my financial guys. Like if you have people around you that you trust that you think are good, like you should take their advice. As I always tell my team, it's like I will trust you guys until something goes horrifically awry. And since things haven't yet, I trust the people that I've brought in.
On the topic of Trump presidency, he was flirting with the idea of 0% income tax. Now, you being kind of in the nitty gritty and knowing a lot of those people being in that sphere, do you think this is truly possible, or do you think this is just another thing that's thrown out, overpromise, underdeliver, which I feel like we've seen just every single campaign ever?
It's probably a little bit of both. I think he really knows how to just throw things out and see what happens. Like kind of just, it's just a balloon. You leave it out there for a little bit. It kind of floats around. Do people get interested in it or not? And then I think there's something real there too. There's a lot of people on the more libertarian side of this that think a consumption tax is the way to go, that you basically get rid of income tax, or the more traditional way would be that you be for a flat tax, which I would be for that. I would be for a flat tax for sure. That's what I wrote about in my first book. We could pick what the number would be. So, you could say maybe it's 12 or 15%. Everybody pays it. And then to throw the lefties a bone. I don't know that this is moral or ethical or even financially sensible, but just to try to get something passed that you could get more people on board, maybe you exempt everybody under 50 grand. And then maybe if you're making, over a couple mil a year, it ticks up a tiny percent.
What is the whole point of a flat tax if you're going to graduate it based on income? You're just reinventing income taxes. Why would you say, well, let's do a flat tax that's not flat, and under a certain income, it doesn't apply. And you pay. What if we had a flat tax, but the more money you made, the more flat tax you paid? Like,
percentage, but that basically, you get like
no deductions or
99
anything too, or is it just
no,
gross?
I mean, the idea of a flat tax is you're going to eliminate all of that, and you'll have a
I still need
one-page tax code.
deductions.
Well, no, you'll
Yeah,
have
yeah,
deductions,
okay.
but you'll get rid of all of the other craziness, right? It's you're going to have a one-page tax code with virtually no loopholes, and that's it. To me, that would be a great way to do it. A consumption tax makes a lot of sense, though. Like, I really like the idea of if you could actually get rid of the income tax altogether. Okay, the government still needs some money to operate, even post Elon Vivek crushing these agencies and all of the things. The government still does need money. So unless you want to be like total ANCAP about this, which I'm not. I like it intellectually, but like I don't think we can fully operate that way in a country of 350 million people.
Then why do you like it intellectually? I like it intellectually, but it'll never work. Then why do you like it intellectually? What the fuck does that even mean?
Would say the consumption tax is a great idea. The more stuff that you buy and the more money that you spend, you'll be taxed on that money. People are always going to buy things and they're always going to want things and need things. And in that sense, if you have a lot, it's not exactly that you're paying more in.
Take that same, I wonder if Dave Rubin has ever said, Dave Rubin, income tax bad. You tax things you want less of. Why tax? I wonder if he's ever said this. I hear this so many times. Why would you tax income? You tax things that you want less of. You tax things that you want less of. So taxing income is stupid. People say this all the time. Let's tax goods. Let's tax things that we consume. Well, wait, wouldn't that mean people would consume less? No, because you want to consume things. So of course you're going to continue to pay tax on that because you want to, I'm sorry, you don't want to earn income? Don't you want to earn money as well? Like what?
People are always going to buy things and they're always going to want things and need things. And in that sense, if you have a lot, it's not exactly that you're paying more in, but there's a, well, I suppose you are paying more in, but it's more voluntary in that sense, rather than, oh, you make this much and we're taking 39.7% of it.
It's also voluntary for income tax. You don't have to work, just don't earn money. What do you mean? Consumption tax is voluntary? Just don't consume. Just don't buy anything. Just sit in your house and eat your Bitcoins.
And that's that. But again, I would only liken it back to the state income tax issue, right? Which is, how does Florida somehow manage to have roads and police and fire departments and
higher property taxes there, right?
But it's marginally higher. Look at the property tax difference. I mean, you guys could try to pull it up if you want, between LA and Miami. It's not that different.
Then why not ask, where does Florida make its money from? Florida, we looked this up once. Florida revenue sources. Where do they make the money from? Isn't it from sales tax? Yeah. Federal government, 35. How do they make money from the federal government? Wait, what does that mean? Hold on. Fuck, we looked this up at one point. Here's him saying it. Wait, does he actually? Did you find this? Hold on.
San Francisco was just pumping out billionaire after billionaire after billionaire. Lefties always complain about the billionaire class. It's like, I've met a couple of billionaires at this point, and they have huge staffs, and they pay tons of salaries, and they buy all sorts of properties. Then we can talk about how much they should be taxed, but they create something of value, and then that value trickles down into all sorts of jobs and everything else. What's happened now, unfortunately, because so many people have left, now you have this very thin layer of super rich people, and all of the people that they staff, who let's say would normally be middle class people, they don't want to live in the city of San Francisco anymore because of the drugs and the crime and everything else.
Wait, why did you link me this? I don't think this was related to... What? Nice try, Brandon.
But it's marginally higher. Look at the property tax difference. I mean, you guys could try to pull it up if you want, between LA and Miami. It's not.
How? There's no way the property tax is the same between Miami and LA, no? With Prop 13? Average property taxes in Florida. The state's average effective property tax is 0.8%. Oh, Florida just must make a lot of money on fucking... Florida sales tax is 6%. I feel like Nebraska's was like 7.5, wasn't it? Oh, 5.5. I wonder if this changed. Florida budget. California budget. Tourists. Nebraska has no tourists/vacationers at all. How much money does tourism? How much money? Tourism industry. Florida. $127.7 billion in economic impact. Economic impact, huh? Okay.
Not that different. There are some things there.
1 to 2%.
1 to 2%, sure, but you're saving 10% on income tax. At least, especially if you're in the highest ratio. So there's a reason that people move to no income tax states. People aren't very excited when they're suddenly like, all right, I'm moving to Cali and New York so I can pay more in income tax. So even though that's not why I left LA, and I suspect that's not ultimately why you left Cali too. Wait, here there's no income tax, right?
Nothing.
Right. So there's a reason it works.
And 0.7% property tax here, by the way.
You got a lot of space.
Capped at 3%, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What are some of your predictions for a Trump presidency in terms of the economy, in terms of the Federal Reserve? I know that some people were flirting with the idea of even just like stopping the Federal Reserve. What are your predictions for the finances of the average American?
I'm extremely bullish on the American economy right now, across the board. Again, you get rid of regulation, you start bringing in people that are going to make things more efficient. Look at what the economy was doing under Trump pre-COVID. Even if you care about some of the identity politics stuff, which I don't care about.
Damn. Wait, hold on. Is this like a biased institution or something? Is this true? The top 1% in Florida? Oh, no. I thought this was how much they contribute to the revenue of Florida. Okay, this is just how much they pay in their of the percentage of their income in taxes. Okay. Hell yeah, this looks about right. Hell yeah. I am a dragon hoarding my wealth.
His last State of the Union speech, we have lowest black unemployment of all time, lowest Latino unemployment of all time. He went through these unbelievable numbers that we had.
That's not true anymore. Biden hit lower black and Latino unemployment than Trump did, but okay.
And the Congressional Black Caucus sat there like this. It's one of my favorite videos ever as they're talking about that, because you think they might be going like this. Oh, that's pretty good. We're the Congressional Black Caucus. Black people have their lowest unemployment.
Is there any list of podcasts where you can sort by critical hosts so that you can avoid podcasts like this? I don't think anybody wants to be critical. The thing is if you're going to be critical, nobody's going to go on your show. That's always the challenge. So like on this show, like if they were to start pushing back against Rubin a lot, then he's not going to come on and he's just going to make the rounds on other shows. And then you basically just lose access to all of those audiences or shows, right? Like that's why like nobody wants to talk to me now on the conservative side for however long this will last, is because now I'm like in full attack mode. I'm like, whoa, no, hold on.
Employment of all time, and they simply didn't care. That's a bit of a separate issue. But I would say by bringing in Elon, by bringing in Vivek, by bringing
Is Bridges any better than this? No, it's called Bridges. It's not a combative show. Bridges, the whole point of Bridges is to bring people together and to just like chat with people, ideally. I'm still kind of like figuring out direction for the show, I guess, going forward, because I would like to challenge people more. But the whole point of that show is to be not as combative, because I'm a combative person when I go on shows, generally.
And all of these people, they are basically going to get America going again. You can even feel it. And the election was less than 3 weeks ago, and you can feel there is a reordering of the world right now. It is very, very obvious that other countries are suddenly like, America might be back. And I think all it actually takes is a little American attitude to start switching these things up and start. We were on a sort of, I would say, a slow motion descent into hell. That's what I was saying on my show. We didn't really realize how bad it was. And everything always seemed like it was getting worse. And it was like, oh, we can endlessly print money and we can endlessly give money to this thing or that thing, and it'll just sort of work forever. And it was just kind of getting worse and worse. And we've been in some sort of like Frankenstein style democracy base.
You understand that Donald Trump continued all of that as well, right? Like, why would you think Trump is going to change it? He didn't do that before.
Where the media kind of lies about everything. The policies don't really make sense. The math doesn't add up. Nobody knows what's really going on, but we just keep doing it. And I think what's happening now is people are realizing we're not going to do that anymore. And I think just that notion alone is going to, and also because of the technological evolution that we're about to have, or revolution, I think that I'm telling you, I've been saying it on my show, we are going to have an 80s style revolution in this country. It is coming. There's going to be a 10-year boom. As short, I would say the only hedge against that would be God knows what the machine can do against Trump. Does COVID-9 come out?
COVID-9? Do we always, so it's like there's already an excuse baked in, basically. There's already an excuse baked in. So either Trump comes in and everything is perfect because Donald Trump is going to fix everything, even though he didn't in his administration and he contributed to all these same problems, or he doesn't fix everything, in which case it was the deep state's fault.
Zombie apocalypse? Do they literally make World War III happen before he gets into office? But short of like some crazy thing, or some black swan event, which absolutely could happen, I think there's every indicator that we're about to go into an incredible time.
So what would you say to the average person who feels like the American dream is dead, and they look at housing prices and they say, it's so unaffordable, I can't buy a house, stocks are at their all-time high, my income is not kept up with inflation, groceries are expensive? What would you say to that person?
I would say you're right. I'd say you're right, and you should be very happy that Trump is president. I mean, I've built a couple businesses and I've done well in that sense, but I'm not an economist. I have no doubt you guys are more experts in that department than I am. So when I'm talking about these things on my show, I try to talk about it in the most simplest terms. So the two ways that I talk about it usually are price of groceries and mortgage rates. To me, that's the easiest way. We all go into the supermarket and we all see the same things, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have. I guess if you have an untold amount, you're a billionaire, you're probably not walking into the supermarket yourself. But all of us basically go in, and what used to be like $5.99 for a pound of beef is now $11.99, literally more than double. Price of eggs, price of milk, all.
Average price of beef, St. Louis, Federal Reserve. It's just Fred, right? Is this like an asset that they track? What does asset class refer to specifically? How broad is an asset class? This wouldn't even be like, beef wouldn't be an asset, right? Would it be a commodity? Investopedia, hold on. An An asset class is a grouping of investments that exhibit similar characteristics and are subject to the same laws and regulations. Asset classes are thus made up of instruments that often behave similarly to one another in the marketplace. An example of common asset classes include equities, fixed income, commodities, and real estate. Okay, what are commodities? Investopedia, specifically. Commodities are raw materials used to manufacture consumer goods. They are inputs in the production of other goods and services rather than finished goods sold to consumers. Okay, gotcha. The average cost of beef right now per pound is $5.63. And it used to be, this is US dollars, not seasonally adjusted. Does that mean that these are not adjusted for inflation? It's not in real dollars or units? You want to see the effect of inflation, don't you want adjusted? Oh, you're right. I'm fucking retarded. Because if it was adjusted for inflation, then it would just be the same exact price, right? Sorry, you're right. See? Wait. Hold on. This guy, LithX in chat, okay? What a great question. If you want to see the effect of inflation, don't you want unadjusted, right? What am I looking at a graph for, right? That was like a macro question. What are we even looking at this for? I want to see how the cost of beef has changed over time, which is a component of inflation, right? Of like CPI or whatever, right? So if I'm looking for an inflation adjusted graph for a thing that I'm looking at to measure inflation, or because I'm curious what the inflation is, I'm literally destroying it if it's in real dollars. It wouldn't make any sense, right? Okay, good job. Okay, so the price of beef now, which is $5.60 per pound, is double what it was in $5.60 would be $2.80 is half. It's double what it was back in 2011. Okay.
All of those things. Something's not right. And Kamala, her answer was, we're going to put price controls because it literally all of us basically go in, and what used to be like $5.99 for a pound of beef is now $11.99.
So I don't know where he's buying beef for $11.99. That's an insane cost compared to at least the average, but okay.
Literally more than double. Price of eggs, price of milk, all of those things. Something's not right. And Kamala, her answer was, we're going to put price controls because it's the groceries. The groceries are basically, and the stores are trying to gouge you, and it's complete insanity. She doesn't want to connect any of that to what gets that pound of beef into the store, which of course includes fuel costs, and it includes the cost of fertilizer and a gajillion other things, right? Her answer was, oh, at the end of the whole process, let's just give governmental control. So I talk about prices of food and then mortgage rates, because I think one thing that I did well is that I bought a couple houses, and I've done well on all of them because I did it when interest rates were low. And when interest rates are low, I've always liked paying my mortgage. I have a mortgage now. I like paying it because I got in when it was still low, like under 3. And then it's like, wow, I was able to afford something that in essence I couldn't just buy in cash, but I'm able to now have something. I pay the bank a little bit extra, right? Not crazy. Now what are mortgage rates now? Or interest rates like 7? That's an insane amount of money. But now if you're at like 2.5, which they were during most of Trump's presidency, it's like, yeah, you have to pay the bank a little something to lend you money. That seems like a fair exchange. That's capitalism. That's pretty good. And then you get to own something and hopefully invest in it and make it better, and then eventually sell that and do that again and again.
Someone argued that
finance podcast. Hold on one sec. Let me use the restroom.
Trump caused housing prices to go up so much. Not directly.
Seems like a fair exchange. That's capitalism. That's pretty good. And then you get to own something and hopefully invest in it and make it better, and then eventually sell that and do that again and again.
Someone argued that Trump caused housing prices to go up so much. Not directly, but during his presidency, because they lowered rates so much, people are
So Trump doesn't control the interest rates of the Federal Reserve, but okay.
Locked into their mortgage. That they can't move because they got a 2.5% rate. If they were to move, their payment would double.
I don't know that you could blame Trump. Well, the implication
being
that
the Federal Reserve, but it would be under his presidency.
Uh-oh, how are they going to sort through this one? Now we have to talk complicated economics when you can have downward and upward prices at the same time on homes. When interest rates go down, it means that homes are technically cheaper to borrow money for, which also increases the demand for homes, which means that prices go up. So the overall value, right? I don't know if there's actually, wait. Hold on. Okay, let's do this. Search. We're going to look for housing. All transactions house price index. What is this measuring? estimate using sales data or sales prices and appraisal data. Okay, if we can, I want to plot this against am I looking for the federal funds effective rate, basically? This graph sucks. How do I make it not cringe? Is there a way to make this not cringe? I want to. I'm actually. I'm sure somebody. There's already a graph for this. I'm sure. I'm just curious. When interest rates go up, what happens to housing prices? Like, how sensitive are they to changes in interest rate? And then do they tend to go up or down when interest rates go up or down? I'm just really curious with the actual thing. I'm sure somebody has graphed this. Fuck me. I don't know how to do this. More so 10-year treasuries. Make the red line its own axis on the left. Connection between yields and nominal prices for housing is inverse and positive depending on the scenario, but the biggest driving factor by far is supply of any type. Okay. Connection between yields and nominal prices for housing is inverse. So as yields go up, meaning interest rates are going up, then housing costs go down, correct? If I understand that. Is inverse and positive depending on the scenario. Oh, wait. So it could be either? The same relationship is true for bonds and other instruments. Oh, here's a graph. Wow, good for you. Fuck, we need to learn how to use this website better. Okay, so there's like basically no fucking relationship. Well, hold on, I shouldn't say that. The relationship, the effect is also probably going to lag a bit as well, right? So like the interest rate kept going up here, and then when it hit this peak here, housing prices started to fall. But this might be because of other things too, right? Because the housing crisis literally happened here as well, right? So I don't know if this is, like these things could be tracking other things going on in the economy. Like they might not be causal, there could be a mutually contributing factor or whatever, right? Oh my God.
But is the implication there that because rates have now gone up,
You said that Statista is not very reliable, or am I misremembering? Statista is just like random charts and graphs. You don't know where the fuck they came from on the internet. You have no. It's a whatever website. You shouldn't use Statista ever. It's garbage. You should learn how to use that website that I'm using. The St. Louis Federal Reserve is probably one of the best data websites on the internet for like U.S. economic data. I'm trying to use it more and learn how to navigate it more. Oh boy.